And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Burrell versus Bruce. Step forward, please.
Business owner Gary Burrell is suing his former tenant, security officer April Bruce, for breaking a lease. April says she and Gary were having an affair, and when she broke it off, he kicked her out.
Mr. Burrell, you have a rental property?
Yes.
How large is this house?
3-bedroom, upstairs, downstairs.
And when did Miss Bruce lease the house? Questions are going to get harder, Mr. Burrell.
I'm sorry. April 1st, 2004.
And what was the term of the lease?
12 months at $650 a month.
When did she move out?
October 18th, 5.5 months into the lease.
And you are suing her for the remainder of the lease?
Yes.
Prior to April 1st, 2004, had the house been rented?
No.
Why not?
I was living in it.
There came a time after Miss Bruce moved in that you began to have a social relationship with her, is that right?
Yes.
When was that?
3 months after she moved in, 3 to 4 months after she moved in.
Did you ever spend the night there?
Once or twice, maybe about 4 times, yeah.
Once or twice, 4 times?
About 4 times.
Do you know, Mr. Burrell, it's not a really good idea to mix business and pleasure?
Yes, I do know that now.
Now, Miss Bruce says that she moved out because you got weird on her. Is that right?
That's true.
How did he get weird on you, and when did he start to get weird on you, Miss Bruce?
2 months into me living there. He started coming over every day, using his master key to get into the house.
Why did you use your master key to get into the house?
I don't ever remember doing that.
Well, the fact that you don't remember doing it doesn't mean that you didn't do it.
I never done that.
And then it's just like he never went, it's like he was just there all the time.
You mean just hanging around?
Just hanging around.
Well, but evidently you didn't mind that because you had an intimate relationship with him.
Yes, I did. Yes, we had a relationship, but I did mind the fact that he was there all the time. And I also brought it to his attention that I didn't like the idea that he was there all the time.
Why did you move out?
The boiling point of the day I moved out was he was there, and he had someone come over. And
what do you mean he had someone come over? I'm not following.
Okay, he told me that was one of his lady friends. When I heard the car pull up, I didn't know who it was, and he came and told me it was one of his lady friends. And then he told me to stay in the room, not to come out the room, because him and his lady friend would be downstairs, and for me not to come and bother them. I just...
Downstairs in your house?
Yes. He was just trying to intimidate me, provoking me, really. That's how I feel about it.
Provoking you to do what?
Provoking me to have a scene with him, to show my furiation. I mean, you know, if you seeing someone and they bring another woman over to your house, I mean, what you gonna do? You're gonna be furious.
What's that all about, Mr. Burrell?
I don't know what she's talking about, Your Honor. The reason I came over that day was because she had wrote me out a bad check for the electric bill right here. That's why I was there.
Can I see it, please?
She got intimidated thinking that my niece was going to be a new person to come in and move because she wasn't paying the bills properly, and I was calling her. And there's a $100 bounce check.
So the reason that you came over that day is because it's a bad check.
Exactly.
All right, that sounds more palatable than what
And
you're saying.
if you'd
Rather
like
than,
to see our
rather than
lease.
infuriating, which is a word
And
that
I
I'm
was
going to have to
bringing
go
that to
look
her.
up after we're finished.
Your Honor, that's not a bad check I've written him. I placed a stopment on that check.
Okay.
After I had to move out of the house, relocate, live with family member to family member, I put a stopment on that check. I felt like he should have went and lived where he was living at and respected my wishes.
Well, I didn't hear anything about wishes.
I know, but why was he coming over? Why was he taking over the property?
Because you were living, you were hanging out together, you were sleeping together, you were in a relationship together, he was hanging out in your house. That's why he was there all the time.
But I couldn't even make my own decisions in the house. I mean, he was coming over there. I don't want this in my house.
Okay.
I don't want this
Listen,
in my house.
Mr. Burrell, what was the rent on the house?
$650 a month.
And you want from her $3,900 because she moved out owing you that much rent
6
for the whole
months,
6 months rent.
Right.
You're not going to get that, sir. But what I am going to give you is 2 months rent. She should have given you a couple of months' notice. This is going to teach you a very good lesson. You rent your house again, keep your pants zipped up. Look elsewhere for your social life, sir. You don't mix business with pleasure. It was a very smart thing for you to say to her when you first started the relationship, because that's what you said. You didn't follow through. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
So, You cleaned up the house, you made repairs on the house. She should have given you notice, at least 2 months' notice. She didn't. Go rent the house, live there yourself, go, be happy, have a nice life. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,300.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She didn't know at the time who was there at the house. When she found out, she used that as a crutch to blow up, infuriation, and create a scene and find a way to get out of her bills and her situation.
I hope he goes on with his life and be happy, because I moved to Norfolk, Virginia, and I love it there.
Don't mix business with pleasure.
23-year-old warehouse worker Monique Goodwin is suing her former landlord, apartment manager Linda Kyle, for medical bills, a security deposit, and pain and suffering. Monique says, due to Linda's negligence, she almost died.
Yeah, this is case number 489 on the calendar in the matter of Goodwin versus Kyle. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Miss Goodwin, Miss Kyle was the resident manager in the apartment complex where you used to live.
Correct.
And you're suing her for thousands of dollars because you say she ignored a medical condition that you had, placing your life at risk, both yours and your daughter's.
Correct.
And you want your pain and suffering that she caused you, some medical bills. In addition, you want a security deposit of $1,000 that she hadn't returned to you.
Correct.
And Miss Kyle says she owes you absolutely nothing. As a matter of fact, you lived there the last month without paying rent, and that's what your security deposit went for. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now let's get to the medical condition first, because I find that quite interesting. I gather there is a gate.
Correct.
In your former complex where you lived, and that when you moved in, you were told that in order to get in and out of the gate, you needed a clicker, like a remote. And it was $25.
Yeah, but at the time, I did not own a...
Don't get ahead of me, please. Okay. I'll let you fill in the blanks.
Okay.
I'm sort of setting this out so that Bird doesn't get bored.
Okay.
So you opted not to get a clicker because you didn't have a car.
No, I had a remote control, but it wasn't one that I purchased from her. At the time, I did not own a car, so there was no reason for me to have a remote control to the gate. But the only reason why I got
it... listen to me. You didn't buy a remote control from her for $25.
Correct.
When did you move in?
I moved in April.
April of what
2004.
Year? All right. And you lived there with your daughter?
My daughter and my son.
Then in October of 2004, your daughter had a seizure.
Correct.
And paramedics came and fire department and everybody else, and they can get in to the complex, but because you didn't have a clicker, they couldn't get out. At least the ambulance couldn't get out. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Correct.
So you were angry because your daughter was stuck in the ambulance or whatever, and you went to her the next day, I assume, and
yes,
said what? And said what?
I was very upset. I approached Miss Linda Kyle and informed her that around 4 o'clock that morning, the paramedics came and picked up my daughter because she had a seizure, and the fire truck came and opened up the gate. After the fire truck left, then the paramedics were there. When the paramedics got ready to leave out of the gate, there was no way for them to, when they went around the apartments,
Listen to me, Miss Goodwin, we're not creating a novel here. This is a novella, small. The ambulance couldn't get out.
No, they couldn't.
So you went and complained the next day?
Yes, I did.
And what did Miss Kyle say to you?
She did nothing.
Your daughter suffers from seizures?
That was the first seizure that I've ever had my daughter have.
Well, after you had that first experience, you know what I would have done?
No.
I would have bought a clicker.
Okay.
You chose not to do that. And then a month later, you had an asthma attack.
Correct.
And you still didn't have a clicker.
Exactly, but that has nothing to do with the paramedics. The paramedics should be able to get out of that gate at all times. The only one that has a code is the fire truck. Once the fire truck leaves, there's nothing that the paramedics can do. The night that I had that asthma attack, there was no way for them. They saved my life. I was hospitalized for 3 days because of that. And the first time, she did nothing.
What I don't understand is why you didn't buy a clicker.
Why I didn't? Because I didn't have a car. There was no need for me. After someone stole it inside the apartment.
Listen to me. There was a need because a month before your daughter had a serious incident, according to you. And Had you had a clicker at that point, you would have gone out in the ambulance with your daughter, gone like this, and the gate would have gone up.
Well, at the time, when a 2-year-old is sitting there having a seizure, that remote control does not mean anything to me. That is my 2-year-old daughter. That's the only daughter that I have. That remote control.
I want to tell you something. You're not making sense to me. You're not making sense to me.
The remote control, okay, the remote control is a big thing to me, okay? It is. But when it comes to the fire truck and the paramedics, that has nothing to do with me having a remote control to the gate. That has nothing to do with it at all, period. I could have lost my life in that paramedics. That's why I'm so upset.
Listen to me, madam. What I don't understand is your daughter had a seizure in October. The paramedics had a problem getting out of your gate. Now you know that your daughter is subject to seizures. I would have said to myself, I have a 2-year-old child. I'm not going to be put in a situation where this can ever happen to me again. Here's $25. Give me a clicker. I'm going to keep it in my house in case I ever have that kind of problem again. That's the way you protect your child. Why would you blame that on somebody else?
Well, it's a lot when it comes to Miss Linda.
We're not talking about Miss Linda. I'm talking about you being a responsible parent.
Yes.
You now have a child that you know is subject to
kids.
seizures, who may in the future have that kind of an emergency. And just as you would go and get the medicine for your child that the doctor gave you, you would want to ensure that if an ambulance had to be called again, you would be able to get the ambulance in and out. I mean, if you disapprove of the way this apartment complex is run, you have a choice. You can move.
Correct.
That's your choice. But to stay there after your 2-year-old has had a seizure without the ability to get her out in case of an emergency is very, very irresponsible.
Well, I thought she was going to fix the problem after I approached her with it.
What made you think that?
Because she's the manager of the apartments. And
now, what did she say to you that led you to believe that she was going to fix it?
She told me they had a code to the gate. They don't have a code to that gate because we sat out there for 30 minutes. When I had my asthma attack, they went knocking on people's doors at 4 o'clock in the morning to get me
Just
out.
a second. Let me ask you a question. They were knocking on people's doors, the paramedics?
Correct.
What did they want when they were knocking on people's doors?
They wanted to get out of the gate.
They wanted a
remote control to get out of the gate.
Judge Judy continues in a moment when says she nearly died from an asthma attack because paramedics couldn't open the security gate to her apartment. Manager Linda Kyle says Monique never purchased a remote control.
Now, after your incident in November, at some point you were served with an eviction notice. You want to tell me why you served her with an eviction notice?
The eviction notice that Ms. Goodwin was served with had nothing to do with the gate. It was due to a nuisance matter where her and her sister was fighting all outside.
You have a complaint?
Yes, I do.
May I see it, please? Who witnessed this?
Actually, it was 3 or 4 apartments in the complex that called and reported that there was a big scene.
Did you have surround sound in your apartment?
No, I do not own surround sound.
Your Honor, she told me she owned surround sound.
When did she tell you that?
When I asked her to turn her music down.
What did she say?
She said that she didn't feel that she should have to get rid of her surround sound, that she had a right as long as she paid her rent and her apartment to play her music whenever she felt like it.
Which is a lie.
Okay, so you were served with this 3-day notice to quit on December the 1st.
No, I wasn't.
When were you served?
I was given this notice to quit on December the 3rd. I tried to give her my rent on the 1st of December. She looked at me with a big smile on her face while me and my mom was in her office and told me that she was not going to accept my rent.
Okay. So she said, I'm not going to accept your rent on December 1st. You were given a notice to vacate the apartment. When did you, in fact, leave the apartment?
We went to court on January the 5th. I didn't leave until January the 22nd.
What was your rent?
My rent was $625.
Did you pay rent for December?
I tried. I have.
Don't tell me you tried.
No, I...
Did you pay rent for December? Did you live there in December?
Yes, I did.
Did you pay rent in January?
No, I did not, because she
Did you live there in January?
Yes, I did. I tried to give her my rent. She did not want it.
No, she wanted you out. The only issue is whether, when you moved out, you owed any money. You lived there for 2 months. You didn't pay rent for 2 months. I'm not here to determine whether or not the underlying case of the eviction was right or wrong. That's been resolved by the housing court. I'm here because you want your security deposit back, and what I'm saying to you is you expected to live there for December and January and not have, I'm speaking, and not pay rent?
I'm gonna get mad.
Are you living someplace now that you like?
Yes, me and my kids are very happy.
Good, that's what I think should happen. I think that you and your children should find a place to live where you're very happy. Does it have a gate?
Yes, it does. And as a matter of fact, the people can get in and out of the gate.
Perfect. Then you're in a place where you're happy.
But the problem...
Listen to me. You're in a place where you're happy. All right. Now, you were given an opportunity to get a remote control for the gate. You chose not to get one. Even after your daughter had a seizure, you chose not to get one.
What does that have to do with the paramedics? I don't understand that.
Miss Goodwin, listen, there are no free rides.
Yeah, but this is the receipt that I tried to give her my rent money. But she would not take it from me.
You just paid it with your security deposit, that's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Me and my daughter could have lost our lives while we were in that paramedics.
Well, I think Judge Judy got a chance to see through Miss Monique.
This lady is a very good liar, and she lies all the time.
She's young. This is her first apartment.
She's just and I hate her, and I'm going to keep hating her.
She's a little hard-headed. You can't make her understand.
She's just like, ugh.
Pray for patience.
Assistant Maria D'Alessandro for having him falsely arrested and for slandering him. Maria says Derek violated a restraining order.
All rise. All rise.
Yes, this is case number 468 on the calendar in the matter of Broussard versus D'Alessandro. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Have a seat, ma'am.
Mr. Broussard, this young lady used to be your landlord.
Yes.
And according to your complaint, she embarked upon a course of conduct of harassment, filing false restraining orders against you, ultimately evicting you from a place where you had lived for some period of time. You want to be compensated for that.
Right.
And Ms. D'Alessandro said everything that she said was in her applications were true, and you were a terrible tenant. You also have a claim against her for slander. You say that when you ultimately applied to other apartments to rent, and they called her to verify your tenancy, she said bad things about you, so it made it virtually impossible for you to get another apartment.
That's correct.
Now, I gather, Mr. Broussard, that you lived in this house. It was a house?
She lived in the house up front. I lived in an apartment in the back.
And you had lived there prior to Miss D'Alessandro moving in because a relative of hers owned the house, and you were the relative's tenant.
Right.
Who was the relative?
My mother.
And what was her name?
Loretta Wallace.
When did you first move into this apartment in the back?
It was approximately 7 years ago.
Did Loretta Wallace ever bring eviction proceedings against you?
Never.
When for the first time did you file notice to quit or pay against the plaintiff?
That would have been in early October 2003.
What happened?
After I had received title to the house, or during the time the transfer was going on, I was in the process of sort of getting my ducks in the row to start making renovations on the apartment building.
What apartment building?
There's the house in the front is where I live. There's a 3-unit apartment building at the rear of the property. And
you live in one of those units?
Right.
Go ahead.
Everything was going smoothly as far as I was concerned, and I had actually started to make renovations in one of the other apartments and had told Mr. Broussard and his girlfriend, I said, look, you know, I'm going to be doing the same thing to your unit at some point very soon, and, you know, just to let them know what was going on and that I didn't forget about them.
When you were making the renovations in the other unit, where were the tenants in the other unit?
That unit was vacant, and the renovations were very extensive.
Go ahead.
So at the end of September, I was at home and I was watering the lawn, and Mr. Broussard came and knocked on my screen door and was complaining about the fact that water was getting on his girlfriend's car. And I told him, I said, you know what, just a minute, I'm on the phone, I'll be with you as soon as I can. He insisted, and he became belligerent, and I stepped outside of the kitchen because I was going to go to the back and simply turn the water off just to get him off of my back. And then he engaged in this verbal tirade in my face so close that he started to spit on me. And it was at that time, it was like, okay, you know what, that's it. You know, I had to do what I felt I needed to do in order to ensure my personal safety, because I was living on the property at the same time, and I didn't feel comfortable with him being there anymore, let alone the fact that he and his girlfriend were going to have to move anyway, because I was going to have to gut the unit to renovate it.
Got it?
Got it.
I didn't have any problems with them, and neither
Let me
did my
ask you this
mother.
question, sir. You want to give me your version of what happened?
Yes, I do, ma'am.
On that date in
Part
October?
of that was true. She did have the sprinklers up real high. And she was home. I went and knocked on the door. I said, Maria, you're soaking our cars. And she looked at me and she said, well, you should have moved them. And slammed the door in my face. And I was shocked. I guess I was holding the screen door, and I must have closed it too hard. And I really upset her. Next thing I know, she comes flying out the door, getting in my face. Now, she's a woman, challenging me as if she's a man. We exchanged a few words, a few unpleasantries. I won't lie about that. But I never put my hands on her, and I called myself, so you know what? Let me get away from her before she says I did something to her, before somebody sees me arguing with a woman. As I'm walking away, her boyfriend comes flying up, and I'm walking away going to my house. He comes and gets in my face, and he says, well, basically, Derek, you and Denise have to move. I said, who are you? He said, that's my girlfriend.
Would you stand up straight, please?
I said, well, this doesn't concern you. I said, I can stay as long as I want to. You don't have anything to do with this property or this matter. I said, get out of my face. So I turned and I walked in the house. And me knowing her, the type of person she is, I knew she was going to do something treacherous, you know, by the first of the month. We decided we're going to make sure this rent is due exactly on the 1st. I don't want any funny business with her. Well, we paid our rent on the 1st. She accepted the rent. I have a canceled check. I have a receipt.
Can I see it, please? Ms. D'Alessandro, did you speak to an attorney before you decided that Mr. Broussard and his girlfriend were going to have to move so that you can do renovations?
Yes, I did, ma'am.
And did the attorney tell you that you can't have them move just because you decided to do renovations on their unit?
No, he did not.
He should have.
Well, and that
He should have.
Ma'am, that was not the reason why I proceeded with the eviction proceedings against
yes,
Mr.
it was.
Broussard.
Just
No,
a second.
it was not.
Oh, yeah, it was.
No, it was not.
The coincidence of you renovating one apartment and then saying to me a moment ago, and he was going to have to move anyway because I was going to totally gut his apartment. Oh, no, he wasn't.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Oh,
but that
no,
was
he
not
wasn't.
the reason why I filed for eviction against him.
That's
It was
the
not.
exact reason, because that's what the lawyer probably told you.
No, he did not
There has
tell
to
me
be a
that.
reason for you. Ms. D'Alessandro, I want to tell you something. You think you're smarter than I am?
I do
you
not,
are
ma'am.
not. You are not. And I've been a judge for a very long time, and things usually happen in a rhythm. And let me explain the rhythm to you that is factual. Fact is, he lived there since 1997. Fact is, between 1997 and 2003, neither you nor your mother before you had occasion to file any kind of charges against Mr. Broussard or his girlfriend. Fact. The same month, according to you, that the title passed to you in the house, you decided to get your ducks in the water and remodel the unit behind the house. And according to you, he came and got in your face on that day, and you decided you had to do something to get him out because he was going to, according to you, quote, a moment ago, he was going to have to move anyway because I was going to gut the apartment. That's what you just told me. Those are the objective facts. And what you would have me believe is that all of a sudden this man who had been a reasonable tenant for 7 years became a psychopath.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Derek Broussard says former landlord Maria D'Alessandro had him falsely arrested for violating a restraining order. Derek also says after he moved out, Maria slandered him to potential landlords.
On October 1st, he gave you a check dated September 30th.
Yes.
I have a receipt for it.
Yes,
Did you
ma'am.
file a notice to quit because he had not paid rent?
No, I was advised to file the 3-day as well as the 60-day based on the fact that Mr. Broussard was habitually late in paying his rent over a period of time.
Just a second. So what you're telling me is that you filed a notice for him to vacate the premises, not because he was late in October, because he wasn't late in October, because he paid you the rent on time.
Right.
But because it started to bother you that before that he hadn't paid his rent.
It didn't bother me. It didn't bother me, and it didn't didn't bother my mother.
So what did you file a complaint for?
I filed the complaint because I felt unsafe with Mr. Broussard being there after he verbally attacked me.
Then what I'm saying to you is, you're not following me, madam. What I said was, he didn't bother anybody before, didn't bother your mother before, didn't bother you before. When he started to bother you was in October when you decided to make renovations on the apartment. Those are the objective facts.
I did not make the decision in October, ma'am. I had started the work on the unit earlier in that summer, approximately June or July.
On his unit?
No, because they were still in it. I couldn't do it.
Right.
But that is not the reason why I filed eviction against him at all.
I don't believe
my mother, I have evidence in here that shows that prior to 2003, Mr. Broussard had a record, a pattern of actually tendering checks that came back in SF.
You just told me, madam, you got to keep your story straight. I'm speaking and you're not listening. You just told me that the reason you gave him the notice to quit was not because of rent. You just said to me the reason I gave him the notice to leave was because I felt unsafe. Well, what is it? Rent or unsafe? Think hard. Think hard. Rent unsafe.
The rent was not the rent was not the issue.
Okay. Now the rent was not the issue. Is that I'm speaking? The rent was not the issue. Can I see your notice to leave? Do you have it?
It's in there. And here's the
Just a minute. Shh. Well, you certainly say here that the reason you gave him the notice, madam, was because of rent.
What document is that you're looking at?
Take a look.
I will say, in my defense...
Just a second. That's...
Yes, ma'am.
Pay attention to me. What's the reason you give in the notice for him to leave?
See, the attorney's office filed this on October the 15th. They made an error, and I have a note in here that verifies that.
Give it to me.
The note?
No,
or
give me the papers back.
The detainer.
Give me the papers back.
The attorney's office acknowledged that they filed the unlawful detainer in error.
When did you file your application for a protective order?
October the 24th.
So, October 15th, they acknowledged they made a mistake, and they withdrew that.
No, not on October the 15th.
Well,
they did not acknowledge that they made the mistake. I did not know that the unlawful detainer had been filed until the morning of October the 21st, and I have a copy of that paper in here.
Oh, okay.
Now, on October the 21st, when I called the attorney's office to say, what are you doing? I called you on October the 2nd to tell you that they had paid their rent in full and to remove the 3-day and maintain the 60-day.
So you told them that on the 21st of October?
That was the only time I knew that the unlawful detainer had been filed.
Listen to me carefully. So now we get to this objective data. The objective fact is that on the 21st, because you knew that you couldn't get them out because they had in fact paid their rent, right?
That's not...
3 days later, you filed a protection order against them. Now let me see the allegations on which you based the protective order. Let me see it.
Restraining order. Is that what you asked?
I want to see the underlying allegations where she filed for a protective order. Underlying allegations. Can I see it, please? Description of the conduct. October 2nd, defendant observed plaintiff banging loudly on her back door. Garbage left in the area surrounding plaintiff's residence, and the defendant observed burning rubber in the driveway. October 3rd, he called you a name. October 17th, broken beer bottles left in front of her garage. So all of these things happened, and you filed this 3 days after you told the lawyer you better withdraw that because he paid his rent.
That's because I was hoping he was just going to leave me alone.
Madam, you are full of baloney.
No, ma'am, I am not.
I believe that the reason you got him out and the reason you filed for a violation is because there was no other way to get him out. He had been a tenant. He'd been a tenant for 7 years. You wanted to renovate those 3 apartments, and the only way to get him out was to have him arrested, which is what you did. Judgment for the plaintiff, and the amount requested $5,000.
That's not the reason why. Congratulations, you got your money.
Excuse me, step out.
Judge Judy.
Good, you got you some money now.
I was trying to get over it, but something inside of me told me don't let her get away with this.
It's breaking beer bottles. Okay, so what? I cleaned it up.
38 years, been a law-abiding citizen. And for her just to say, take him away, like I'm a piece of meat.
It's a lot more pleasant place to live now.
She's had ex-boyfriends vandalize her property, so she felt like she could blame it all on me.
He can move on. I've moved on.
Oh, man, I'm so happy. I love Judge Judy.
And now the next case. And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Eden versus Neely. Step forward, please.
18-year-old student Desiree Eden is suing her father's girlfriend, EMT tech Susan Neely, for the return of payments on a Dodge Neon she repossessed. Susan is countersuing for the vehicle's unpaid balance and insurance payments.
Who are you?
I'm the dad.
Why don't you stand up, sir? Miss Eden, while this gentleman, who's your father, is not a defendant, I'm going to have him stand here because I think it's important. Miss Neely is your father's girlfriend. They live together, is that right?
Yes.
According to what I read, a couple of years ago, you needed a car. You were living with your father and his girlfriend. And Miss Neely agreed to buy a car. You were underage, so it was in her name. And tell me what the agreement was.
The agreement was that I paid the car payments on the car as it came. I paid the $1,000 down plus the car payments on it.
Did you?
Yes, I did.
From when to when?
From November 2003 to December or November 26th of 2004.
And you made the payments every month?
Yes.
Who paid the insurance?
I paid it when she asked for it.
The agreement was that you would make the monthly payments?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Neely, is it correct that Miss Eden made the monthly payments on the car from November of 2003 to November of 2004?
Her last payment was on November the 12th.
So the answer would be yes?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what happened in November of 2004?
Okay, the day after Thanksgiving, she decided that she was going to move out and move in with her boyfriend. And I told her she could not take the car because that car was in my name. It was titled in my name. And I would not let her have it because if something should happen and they go out and have a wreck and kill somebody, it comes back on me. So I told her she had to leave the car with me, and if she came with the balance owed against the car, then I would sign it over to her.
That's not true, Your Honor.
Just a second.
She did not come up with the $2,201.93 that was owed against the car, so I would not allow her to have it.
Well, wasn't your agreement. Ms. Neely, that wasn't your agreement.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Eden says her father's girlfriend, Susan Neely, illegally repossessed her car. Susan says she took the car away when Desiree moved in with her boyfriend.
When did you turn 18?
May 23rd.
Of 2004?
Of 2004.
Once she turned 18 and continued to make the payments, and you continued to accept the payments, that contract that you had with her, that verbal contract, was ratified, which meant it became a contract. The contract's terms were very simple. You make the payments until the car is paid off, I'll sign the title over to you. That was your contract.
But she's no longer making payments.
She stopped making payments because you wouldn't let her take the car.
Correct.
What we're talking about is an anticipatory breach, which is you said to yourself, I'm not so sure whether she's going to continue to make the payments on the car if she's not here and living with the boyfriend, so I'm not going to let her have the car. That's what you really said.
Well, our insurance company told us that.
Hey, don't tell me what your insurance company told you. The insurance company cannot interpret a contract that you had with her.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Also, when it was told to her when we decided to get the car for her, it was also told that she would stay in school, and it depended on her grades. That way we could also use the car. If she starts slipping a little bit, we could take the car away from her.
She hadn't slipped? Sir, she just decided to move out and move in with her boyfriend.
Exactly. But after that is when she lost her job. She quit school.
I did not.
But just a second. Just a second. Mr. Eden, at the time she left, she was making the payments.
Yes.
She was in school.
Yep.
And she had a job.
Yes.
You can't anticipate what's going to happen afterwards. Where's the car now?
It is at my house.
They have it for sale for $2,500.
Car is hers.
Okay, who pays the rest of the...
She does.
Okay. Does she pay that to us or to the car dealership or...
Are you working?
No, ma'am.
Well, how are you going to make the payments on the car?
Well, I just moved back into my mom's here recently. I have to get another job.
Where's the boyfriend?
Right here.
How come you moved out of his house?
We both moved into my mom's house. We were having too much problems in Monette where we were living with him. He had assaulted me shortly after I moved out.
Who did?
My father. I had to get a restraining order against him on December 8th. He assaulted me on December 7th.
About what?
About he was mad that I moved out and I was living with him.
Does he work?
Yes, he does.
What does he do?
He is
Don't
in
look down.
factory.
What?
Factory.
And what about you?
I'm in school, high school.
How do you do in high school?
I do really good. I have good grades.
You do really well.
I do really well. I try.
I have a report card from when she left.
We don't need you to do any negatives.
Okay, I just sort of...
Listen to me. Is he in school?
No, he's not.
How old is he?
22.
Do you have the ability to do better in school?
Yes, ma'am.
It's really dumb to hitch your wagon to a star when you're 18 years old, especially when the star isn't such a star. Unless you get an education, it's going to be a struggle your whole life. You want to struggle your whole life?
No, Your Honor.
You know what I'm saying to you?
Yes, ma'am.
You look like you have the potential to do okay. Unless you recognize your potential, you're going to be clawing at life your whole life. I think that taking back this car is probably going to be a terrible burden for you, financially, because you don't have the money for it now, right?
Right.
So you put in $4,000 into the car in the year that you had it, in payments that you made.
Correct.
Let's say you had to rent a car, a basic car, for the year. That would have cost you about $2,000 or $166 a month, basic. So you have the following choice. Either you assume full financial responsibility for this car, or I'm prepared to award you half of what you're requesting, which is $2,000, which might give you an opportunity of going and finding a good second-hand car that wouldn't give you any further payments. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
And then Ms. Neely and your father can go and sell this car. If they make a profit, fine. If they don't, fine. You think that's a smarter idea for you?
Yes, I do, because I don't know what they've done. I'm not sure what they've done to the car since I haven't had it.
Well, I don't think they've purposely done anything. They're trying to sell it. All right. You can't anticipate a breach of a contract. You had an agreement with this young lady, and she fulfilled her end of the agreement. She used the car for a year, over a year. She understands that that's wear and tear on the car. I'm awarding her $2,000. Be smart. Buy wheels so that you can get yourself to and from school and to and from a part-time job. Do well in school. Think a little higher than what you know. Think a little higher, think. Can I reach my potential, and what is that?
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
You don't have any children, do you?
Oh, no.
Right?
Right.
Right?
Right.
And you don't plan on any for a while, right?
No, ma'am.
Very smart. Make sure. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $2,000. That's all.
Excuse you may step out.
We went driving around. He got upset because we were going to get married and hit me a couple times.
No, I never assaulted my daughter.
She moved in with me, and we had trouble ever since.
He basically told her that she couldn't go around anybody and do anything. We couldn't come around her.
They like to lie, and they're vicious people, I think.
They got what they deserve. They put her through a lot of trouble when I first met her.
They're portraying to be such innocent people right now, and they've got plans to move to Illinois just as soon as they get the money to go, and I think they just got their money.
I think when he grows up and becomes a man, then he can realize what he's missed out on throughout the years.
For things to turn out like this, it's just something I don't know if I'll ever get over. I don't know if she'll ever.
Plaintiff Donna Peterson is suing her grandson, 21-year-old freezer operator Justin Peterson, for an unpaid loan to pay off his legal bills. Justin says not only did he make payments to his grandmother, but he also did work for her.
Your Honor, this is case number 237 on the calendar in the matter of Peterson versus Peterson. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
This is your grandma.
Yes.
Your grandma says that she made some loans to you while you were living with her.
Yes.
Over $3,000?
Yes.
And you say that there was never a loan, And if there was, you gave her some money in cash, and you bartered for some of it by taking care of her and doing her landscaping.
Yes.
When did you go and live with your grandmother?
It was back in February 2003.
Why?
Well, due to divorce situations with my parents, my dad needed a room so my sisters could live with him, and I had to go.
You weren't having trouble with your father, were you?
No.
So when you realized that you had to find another place to live, did you call your grandmother?
No.
Well, how did it come about that you went to live with her?
I went on my own, and I was in my car for a little bit.
You were in your car?
Yes.
Why were you in your car?
Because I didn't want to beg anyone. I didn't want to ask anyone to do anything.
How were you supporting yourself?
I was going store to store with getting pop cans.
Well, why weren't you working?
I was previously laid off from another job.
How long hadn't you worked?
Since October of '02.
Well, maybe that's why your father told you to get out.
No.
Your grandmother said yes. So your grandmother volunteered to take you in?
I had a cell phone that was about to expire and stuff. She called me on it and was wondering where I was. She didn't want me to... She was basically saying, I don't want you to live on the car. I thought you were going to come live with me. I was like, okay, I will.
Is that what happened?
No, I hadn't had any contact with Justin. Nobody had. And I was very worried about him. And he showed up on my doorstep. I just accepted that he would come and stay with me.
Now tell me about these loans that you claim you made to your grandson.
Okay, he got a job through some friends of mine.
Great. Starting when?
I'm not positive.
February 5th.
Great. So practically right away.
Yes.
It was before I moved in.
Go ahead.
No, you already lived with me, Justin. Anyway, he owed quite a few bills. His car needed work. He was driving without a license, without insurance, and he was picked up once that I know of, and his car taken away, and I think they took him away too, and his father got him out. So I asked him to make a list of what he owed, and we worked out together what the loan would be. And I have a copy of the original check was $3,500.
May I see it, please? So he sat down and made a list of what all of his bills were.
Yes. And we supposedly paid off everything he owed.
So that was in July of 2003. You paid off all your debts.
Yeah, that I knew of.
Great. How much did you pay back?
I started paying small increments. Work was starting to get unstable. There was one time where I had a layoff period of 6 weeks.
And what did you do during that 6-week period?
I used unemployment, but it was very little, and I was barely holding on to keeping the insurance that I had.
How much rent were you paying to your grandmother?
$200 a month.
Is that right?
Yes. However, the first 3 months, I didn't ask him to pay anything so he could save money to get an apartment.
So how did you pay her back?
For those first 3 months, all the money that I couldn't save, I was putting towards what was being collected upon me from collection agencies, Verizon, and other companies. And I was basically being swallowed and just trying to keep up.
Well, that's why she gave you this $3,500
Yeah,
to consolidate everything so you could pay it all off and then pay her back regularly in a smaller increment. How much did you pay her back?
Well, I've got records here of what I have paid her.
Can I see it, please?
Yes. This is when I recently got employed, and like agreements we made verbally that I would pay what I can when I could, and at least the minimum.
Well, you have down here $720.
Yes.
And I see that the payments didn't start here until May of 2004.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, that was when I moved to Umatilla for work.
But, Your Honor, also, I got one of the bills, the statements from the credit card company, and there was a $250...
What credit card company? You gave him a check.
Yes, I did, but it's from a Chase Manhattan Bank. It's from a credit card company.
I see. So they took this right off a credit card.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I got a $250 charge on the credit card, and he said that he had a bill that he had overlooked. I had given him a signed check from the credit card company because they send you blank checks.
So he said you had signed the check and gave it to him?
Yes, he did. And
did you?
No, I didn't.
You mean he told you that you had signed the blank check?
Yes. And anyway, I didn't argue with him because he's always right. So I called the credit company and asked them for a copy of the check because I knew I hadn't given him a check and signed it.
Can I see it, please?
It was a check that he had forged. And he had said, well...
Just a second. What do you have to say about that, Justin?
I'd gotten a notice from Verizon for my cell phone that had expired, and I had $350 still left in the bank, and I needed a little extra to do that. I called her on the phone. She was kind of slurring her words, which I figured she'd been drinking, and she said, okay.
So she is correct that you forged her name to the check.
I signed it, yes.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Her grandson, Justin Peterson, owes for a loan to pay his bills. Justin says his grandmother is a drinker.
You forged her name to the check.
Yes, I signed it.
She didn't turn you in, did she?
No.
When did you tell your grandmother exactly how much you wrote out this check for?
Afterwards, she confronted me about it later. I figured she already knew because I'd called her. And
when did you leave your grandmother's house?
Late January, early February of 2004.
Tell me about that.
She was in Palm Springs, and we were having troubles. Every time I'd come home, it was Justin, 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 and I'm just trying to get by.
Justin, 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 what?
She would confront me about, you need to do more, you need to do more, you need to pay more, and it's like, I'm trying. And what we agreed upon was making at least the minimum as long as there wasn't a negative mark.
Well, you hadn't paid anything, Justin. You showed me what you paid. You hadn't been paying anything. Not a minimum, not anything, for months.
I had also done work for her, which she agreed upon.
So tell me about that, Justin.
Well, she was complaining about the lawn. I offered, Grandma, since I'm not able to get you as much, I could do the lawn for you. I could have it done in one day.
Try not to look at the walls, Justin. Try to look at me when you're testifying.
I'm just recalling, Your Honor.
Well, try to recall while you're looking at me.
Okay. Well, I was trying to find ways.
No, you're right. Are you cross-eyed?
No.
Then look at me.
I was trying to get the balance covered and stuff, and I knew I was getting close to missing more. And I went to
right here,
I
Justin.
went to a friend. I was just overlooking this.
You don't have to look at anything. Tell the truth. You should be able to remember it.
I am.
Okay.
I went and purchased a bunch of sod. My buddy had come over too, Chris.
What month was this in, Justin?
I don't remember the exact month.
Well, I
it was
would
like
like
July
you to...
or August.
Of what year?
Of 03.
I want you to think about whether it was July or August of 03.
I just remember it was a really hot day.
And what you're telling me, Justin, is you had fallen behind in the payments.
I was coming close to, yes.
But previous to that, you had made the payments.
Yes.
How many payments had you made previous to that?
Well, I'd given her bigger amounts of money, like $200, $250. One time she wrote, well, I gave her the checks. And
so that was before you were doing the landscaping?
Yes.
All right, now let me explain something to you, Justin, my dear. According to what you just said to me, and I want to make sure that I'm getting this right, Officer Byrd, Justin says that he did some work for his grandmother in order to pay off his debt to her. Some landscaping work in July or August of 2003. He said that previous to that, he had been up to date in his payments. That's what you said.
Yes.
That's what he said. My problem with that, Officer Byrd, could you just take a look at this check and tell me the date of the check of his grandmother's for $3,500?
7/10/2003.
So what you're telling me, Justin, is before your grandmother gave you this check for $3,500 in mid-July of 2003, you started paying the credit card company back? Is that what you're telling me?
I made a plural mistake, yes.
You made a big mistake! Because you may be trying to get over on me that something's wrong with your grandmother's mind, but I got news for you. Nothing is wrong with mine. And certainly nothing is wrong with Officer Petrie Hawkins Byrd. So when somebody lends you money and someone extends themselves, puts money on a credit card so that you can have a clean slate, because that's what your grandmother did, you don't turn around and kick them in the behind by standing there and telling a whole bunch of lies. Do I make myself clear? Yes. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,200. That's all. Get out.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I'm not mad at my grandson. I'm hoping this will help him to mature and be responsible for himself.
I tried being good with my grandma. I did have problems.
The world doesn't owe you a living. You've got to pay your way.
Trying to look like a saint who got screwed.
I hope that it helps him to mature and be responsible for himself.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Butler versus Owens. Step forward, please.
24-year-old law student Camilla Butler is suing her former roommate, personal banker Nicole Owens, for breaking a lease and unpaid bills. Nicole says she gave Camilla ample notice.
Miss Butler, you and Miss Owens were roommates. You claim she moved out prematurely, owing you 2 months' rent. The 2 months were for the months that you were not going to be there, but you claim an agreement that she would pay rent until the end of May. You also claim she owes some bills. She said she gave you 3 weeks' notice, and she left her $250 security deposit with you. That more than covers any outstanding bills. That's your defense. When did you move in together?
Your Honor, we moved in together on January 22nd. That's when we agreed to move in together over the phone.
Okay. Now, you moved into an apartment that you had or she had, or that was a brand new apartment?
It was a brand new apartment for both of us.
Good. Can I see the lease, please?
Absolutely.
Who found the apartment, Miss Butler?
The defendant and I agreed to move into the apartment one day. Gage and I went up to Long Beach to...
So you looked at it together for the first time?
We found it separate. I'm sorry. I found it alone.
And you signed the lease alone?
She did not sign the lease. However,
that means that she is not a signatory to the lease. If she did not sign the lease, madam, then she is not responsible under this lease. You understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
So this is not the lease upon the contract that you are suing on. You're suing on a contract that you had with her, according to you, to live in the apartment until the end of May.
That's correct, Your Honor. It was an
Good.
oral agreement.
And may I see that agreement?
It was not in writing. It was oral, Your Honor.
Well, tell me about the oral agreement that you think is binding.
Okay. We agreed orally over the telephone to move in together. We agreed on an apartment together orally, and we agreed orally that she would sign the lease that evening.
But she never did.
That's true. She never did sign the lease.
Okay, Ms. Owens, let me hear what happened on the 22nd of January.
I never said I would move in and stay there until May. I never made an oral agreement that I would sign the lease that night. None of that ever happened.
Well, when she called you, did she tell you how long a lease she had to sign?
It was month to month.
This is a month-to-month lease.
Yes, Your Honor, it is. However, we agreed together, separately, outside of the lease agreement, that we would be living together until May 31st.
She didn't want to live with you after March.
Yes, she did tell me March 10th that she was entertaining the idea of moving out.
Mm-hmm.
At that day, we talked about it. I said, that's fine if you want to move out. That's fine with me. However, if you choose to move out, you need to make sure that you find somebody to move in your place. She agreed.
That's not true.
Well,
no, that's not true. You're not responsible for the lease in April or May. You could have given your landlord notice and moved. You chose to stay there.
However, we did agree that we would live together until the end of May.
Listen, people get married and they agree to live together till death do us part. 50% of those people go their own way. Just because you agree doesn't mean that she has to stay there. Now, what about her security deposit?
We haven't gotten the security deposit back since the landlord is still in the process of cleaning the apartment and, seeing what needs to be done.
But you had $250 in security deposit?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Now, what bills do you say she left when she left?
There was a gas bill for February, electric bill for February, garage rental for March, gas bill for March, and also there were 10 days of rent between January 22nd and January 31st, where apparently we didn't pay for it in February, so we had to pay it later, and Nicole never paid that part.
So let me have those figures, please.
Okay. Your Honor, would it be okay for Gage to testify about the conversations he had with Nicole?
Sure. Last name?
Ron.
I'm ready to hear you.
Essentially what happened is Nicole said, I'm just going to leave, and that's the end of the story, and that she gave Camilla her 30 days notice, but the landlord required that 30 days notice.
Well, let me tell you, I've looked over your damages. Your damages, you say, were $1,129.83. If you deduct April's garage rental, because she wasn't there in April, and if you deduct the $850 in rent, comes out to exactly $249, and she's got $250 in security deposit. So really the only issue is it reasonable for Ms. Owens to pay you 1 month's rent to have given you a full 30 days notice of her intention to leave? Do you think it was reasonable for you to give her 1 month's notice, 30 days notice?
I didn't even know until 3 weeks prior that I would be moving out.
That's not her fault.
I know.
That's your fault.
That. Yeah, I
That's your
understand
fault. And 30 days notice is not unreasonable, because
No,
if she were
it's
to
not.
give the landlord 30 days notice pursuant to the lease, then she could have, I don't care if she went home to live with her mother. I don't care if she went home to live with this guy. I don't care if she goes into a shelter. That's not the issue. The issue is you had to do the right thing and give her 30 days notice, which you didn't do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, I understand that.
So, minimally, you owe her $425, which is your half of the rent for 1 month.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the bills is more than covered by her security. You left the place pretty clean?
Oh, yes.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $425. That's all.
Excuse me, step out, please.
Her boyfriend recently totaled her car, so I'm sure she needed money to fix whatever problem she had with that.
Oh, that's certainly not the case at all. My insurance covered the car. It was not a problem.
It went well. I'm just glad I didn't have to talk a lot.
Judge Judy cleared it all up for us.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Dutcher Wilson versus Lake. Step forward, please.
17-year-old Melissa Wilson and her mother, Sue Dutcher, are suing Melissa's half-sister, 23-year-old college student Beth Lape, for the return of Melissa's personal belongings. Beth is countersuing for rent and for a broken front door.
Melissa,
Yes.
you are how old?
17.
This is your sister.
Yes.
These two young ladies are your daughters. Is that right?
That's correct.
According to your complaint, Melissa, you moved in with your sister,
Yes.
and you have a child who's 4 years old,
Yes, I do.
and you moved in with your child.
Yes, I did.
It didn't work out. You left,
Yes.
and your sister refuses to return property that she says she has that belongs to you, and she acknowledges that she has property that belongs to you. She says you can have the property back when you pay her what you owe her in rent. As far as her counterclaim against your mother is concerned, she says that you have harassed her and some other nonsense, which I'm sure she'll tell me about when I give her a brief opportunity. What property do you have that belongs to your sister?
Clothing, personals, a couple toys of her daughter's.
Why haven't you given it back to her?
When she stayed with me, what happened at the beginning of August of this year, she had called me. We started talking more often, 2-3 times a day. She wanted to move into the city because she lived about an hour away from the city. And she expressed to me on several occasions she wanted to come stay with me. And I said, right, the first couple of weeks she moved, I went and got her on the 17th of August. She wanted to stay. I said, you know, the rest of the month, the 2 weeks, you know, fill out applications. You don't have to worry about, you know, just pick up after yourself. And if I need you to babysit here and there, you know, for that or whatever, then that's okay.
Prior to moving into your house, who was she living with?
She was living with her father and stepmother.
Let me cut to the chase, my dear. Your sister is 17 years old. You can't make a contract with her for rent. Do you understand?
I understand. Yes, I do understand.
Good! That's what the law says. The law says unless a court has emancipated her, and I don't hear that any court has emancipated her, she's 17 and she cannot enter into a binding contract to pay you rent. You cannot withhold her property. Do you understand? Good. So 5 days from today, you want to box her property and make sure you box it appropriately and keep it all in
I already
good
boxed it
order.
up. Yeah.
And she will make arrangements to come and pick it up.
Thank you.
Understood?
Yes.
All right. Now, you have a counterclaim against your mother. You want to tell me what that's about?
Yes. On the 8th of October, they had come to my house.
For what?
She had to get her stuff. She had a key.
Okay, she came to your house to get her property
With the
that you
cops.
previously would not give her.
Exactly.
Okay.
She came with a cop. They kicked in the door. Now, she had a key. I still don't understand why they kicked in my door.
Who kicked in your door?
Both of them. I have a police report if you'd like to see it.
Now, where were you when they kicked in the door?
I was upstairs in my children's room laying my youngest one down for a nap. The door was closed. I'm sorry.
How do you know that your mother kicked in the door?
The police told me that.
That's hearsay.
It's in a police report. They both kicked it in. And also my witness. She did see the incident, what happened that day.
Step up. Are you a neighbor of hers or a friend of hers?
I'm her half-sister.
When did you arrive at her home that day?
I'd say between about 4:30 and 5 o'clock.
Were you there when the police arrived?
When I pulled up, there was 2 police cars I noticed her mother's van there, also her other sister's vehicle there. I noticed Mrs. Dutcher and Miss Wilson exiting Beth's house, yelling and screaming, shouting profanities, so forth, in front of all her neighbors. My nephews were present. They're 2 and 6, confused.
So that my question to you is, you did not see anybody kick in the door?
No.
How did you push in the door?
She unlocked the door with a key. She had a child's riding vehicle jammed between the wall and the door so that we couldn't push it all the way open. And a part of the door did break. It wasn't the lock on the door, but it was the part in the door jamb. The latch.
The cops told me they allowed her to break in because if you lock yourself out, you're allowed to break in.
Oh, just a minute. Wait. I mean, I told you that's hearsay, but you're telling me now that the police told her she was allowed to break in to get her stuff? Is that what you just said to me?
The police allow you to break in if you lock yourself out.
Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
So
you're allowed to break in, but it's a rental property. You're still responsible for it.
Just a second.
You're still responsible for the door. What are you talking about? You're still responsible for the door. If you break your own property, it's a rental property. You still have to pay for it.
Let me tell you something, my dear.
Then the landlord would sue us.
Let me tell you something, my dear. It could all have been avoided if, when your sister left, you let her take her clothing, the baby's toys, and said this didn't work out. What you said to her was, you're not getting the stuff until I get the rent. That's what you said. That's what you said in your answer.
No, I know that.
So, so you caused the problem yourself. You cannot withhold her property.
I didn't make her lock. She had a key.
Grow up. The case is just, listen to me. You're getting your stuff back 5 days from today. Your counterclaim is dismissed. That's all.
How does that excuse you?
Like the judge said, she needs to grow up.
She had a kid when she was 12, 13 years old. I tried to help her out. I tried to give her freedom and help her be more responsible at the same time.
She never let me go anywhere or do anything. I always had to be there and stay there with her and her kids.
Yeah, I have rules. Yeah, you may be 17 and you want to go party and not get a job, but you still have to pay bills and you still have to contribute.
She left me a very threatening message on my cell phone.
My mom raised us. We have attitudes, we have problems and stuff, and that all springs from our mother.
Chiropractor Dr. Richard Perry is suing nursing assistant Felissa Carlton for the cost to fix his Jeep Cherokee and for pain and suffering due to a car accident. Felissa says the accident was Richard's fault.
This is case number 333 on the calendar in the matter of Perry versus Carlton. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated, sir.
Mr. Perry, Miss Carlton, according to you, caused an accident.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Caused an accident causing damage to your car and injury to you.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Miss Carlton says that there was a merge, you wouldn't let her in, and once she got in, you accelerated. So the accident was your fault. You really weren't injured at all. You just behaved very badly. So you want to tell me first when this happened?
This occurred on July 26th of 2004, Your Honor.
That's your diagram. I'd like you to show me your car.
My car would be back here, Your Honor.
The red.
The defendant would be the blue car here.
So she was merging in behind a truck and in front of you.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Tell me what happened.
Well, we were proceeding westbound on Main Street, and this lane where you see the defendant is actually not a lane. It is a lane that has been merged into a right turn lane. What happened was she came from about 4 cars back. She decided to come up.
4 cars back, so she was behind
the
purple car.
She was actually in the left-hand lane about 4 cars back.
And how do you know that?
I saw her in my right rear view mirror.
So she came out of that lane, the same lane that you were in?
That's correct, Your Honor. Came down this center lane, which is blocked off because of construction, ran over this cone here, actually, behind this truck. We were moving at approximately 15 to 20 miles an hour. She then cut in very sharply behind the truck right in front of me, which was only about 5 feet distance. At that point in time, I had no options. I didn't have any reaction time. I ran over her rear end, which caused my right front end to go up over her rear end, causing my car to tilt to the left and then bounce back down.
What kind of car were you driving?
I'm driving a Jeep Cherokee, Your Honor.
And Miss Carlton?
Miss Carlton was driving a little Echo, Toyota Echo.
So your car actually went up on top of hers?
It actually went up on her wheel and came back down, Your Honor.
The whole back of the car?
No,
or
on her left rear quarter panel where her tire is. It actually went up over it. There
So
were
the
scuff
side.
marks on her left rear quarter panel from my tire.
So the side
Yes.
of her car.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
At that point, I was thrown over to the side. When the car came back, I jammed my head on the door jamb. At that point, I honked and started honking vigorously. She stuck her hand out the window and waved at me and took off.
Where did she take off?
She took off into this left-hand lane, which proceeded left. At that point, there's an overpass at that point that goes over the freeway. On the other side of the overpass, there's a baker's restaurant. In that restaurant, she finally pulled into the restaurant. I pulled in, blocked her from turning out towards the left to get back on another street. And at that point, she stopped, exited her car, very profoundly said, "What are you doing?" I signaled, "What the are you doing?" And at that point, I asked her for her driver's license, her registration, and proof of insurance. She said, "I'm not giving you anything." At that point, she took a young child, it appeared to be a young male, out of the back seat of the car.
Is that what she said? I'm not giving you anything?
"I'm not giving you anything." And she took this young male, which had not been seatbelted in. There was no car seat in that car. She
How
took
old
him
was
into
the child?
about 4 or 5 years old, Your Honor.
Okay.
She took him into the restaurant, was in there for about 10 minutes. In the meantime, I'm calling the police, reporting what was going on. She comes back out of the restaurant with food and the child. About 10 minutes later, a gentleman shows up, identifies himself as her husband, and proceeds to start cussing at me and yelling at me, and tells me that he's going to kick my and take care of me. And at that point in time, I walked away from them, again calling the police, telling them that this had escalated into an adversary situation and I needed help. We waited for about another 10 to 15 minutes. He talked with the defendant got in her car, and they drove away.
And you got there.
The only thing I was able to get was the license plate off of her car.
So that's how you tracked it down.
I attempted to track it through the DMV, who, through multiple things, they decide you can't do that. They would notify her to notify me, which she had already decided not to give me that information.
Now, according to your complaint, sir, you were injured. I'd like you to tell me how you were injured.
I was having a lot of neck pain. I was having severe headaches. I went to see Dr. Recognized that this was a whiplash injury.
Listen to me. What kind of work do you do, sir?
I'm a chiropractor, Your Honor.
Okay. And who's Dr.
Doctor is a chiropractor.
A colleague of yours?
Yes.
Okay. How many days were you out of work, sir, after the 26th?
I was not out of work, Your Honor.
Good. How much damage did you have done to your car?
About $100 worth of damage.
Do you have?
I have
receipt?
the estimates of the damages to my car, Your Honor.
Okay.
Exhibit 3.
Okay. May I see it, please?
Exhibit 3.
Exhibit 3. So this whole thing was $62.31. That was the damage to your car?
The end caps on my bumper and the stabilizer, Your Honor, yes.
Is there anything else other than Exhibit 3?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. You work 5 days a week, sir?
I work 6 days a week, Your Honor.
Okay. And you didn't miss any work?
I didn't miss any work, but I did
Good.
work in pain.
I'm sure your doctor friend was able to help you.
Yes. Yes, very definitely.
Good.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Mr. Richard Perry claims he was injured due to a car accident caused by Felissa Carlton. Felissa says Richard is a hothead.
All right, Ms. Carlton, I want you to tell me what happened, madam.
I proceeded to merge onto the left lane, and I looked over my shoulder. There was plenty of room, so I decided to keep going. And as I was proceeding, I heard an acceleration, and then I felt a slight bump. It didn't seem bad, so that's why I was like, because I was trying to say, it's okay, don't worry about it. But he honked, and he was raging, and so I didn't pull over right away until I got into Baker's, because there was no way I could pull over. We were going over the pass. So when I pulled over, I'm sorry, but he's the one who asked, what the F do you think you're doing? I tried to talk to him. I tried to calm him down. I said, my kids are in the car. And he says, I don't give an F. Who's in the car with you? And I couldn't calm him down. I couldn't talk to him. I couldn't give him any information.
Did he ask you for your license, registration, and insurance?
No, ma'am.
He did not?
No.
That would be odd.
I couldn't talk to him.
No. Ms. Carlton, I don't believe that.
I'm sorry.
I don't believe that. All right, sir. You want to step up?
Mm-hmm.
Your wife called you and said she had been in an accident?
Yes, Your Honor.
Were those her exact words?
Well, what happened when she called me, she told me that she was just in an accident, and while she's talking to me, I heard the plaintiff cussing in the background, yelling at my wife, and I tried to get her, explain to me what happened, and she's trying to tell him to calm down and so she could talk to me. And she said he's acting like a child. He won't exchange information. And I have the kids with me, so I immediately left work and I went to see what was going on.
So why didn't you give him a license, registration, and insurance?
I asked him. I said, "Well, is there anything you'd like to tell me that you were telling my wife?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "You're an idiot." Well, at that point, I told him in not so many nice.
Why didn't you just give him your license, registration, and insurance?
Because my wife had told me she had already tried that, and he was not cooperating.
Well, why didn't you try it, sir?
Well, at that point, I was there to take care of my wife who was being attacked by an angry man.
He wasn't attacking her when you got there, was he?
He was on the phone when I heard him.
He was not attacking her when you got there, was he?
That's right. No, he was not.
And she had already been in the restaurant with your son.
Right.
Is that right? Gotten food, right?
Yes.
And when you went into the restaurant and you got the food, did you ask the owner of the restaurant if you could use the phone to call the police?
No.
And if somebody is attacking you, if somebody is acting like a lunatic, you do that, right? You call the police, you say, somebody is out there, I'm afraid, right?
Right. And I did.
And you didn't. You got hamburger and fries.
No, I didn't.
Now, you came outside before your husband arrived, correct?
Right.
Right. So if you're really afraid of somebody, if they're behaving like a lunatic, you stay inside the restaurant until either the police arrived, who you didn't call, or your husband arrives. That's just common sense. So I don't believe that you were frightened.
Okay.
I also think, Mr. Perry, that you overreacted. I don't think you make a big deal about something if you have a fender bender. You had a fender bender that cost you $62.31, not $5,000.
The medical expenses are what cost the most. There's about $4,000 in medical expenses, Your Honor.
As far as I'm concerned, Dr. Perry, if you are in so much pain that you have $4,000 worth of medical expenses, you miss 1 day of work.
Unfortunately,
1 day,
unfortunately,
Dr. Perry,
Your Honor,
you know where I'm going
my
with you?
patients don't quite get to that point.
Listen, Dr. Perry, it's not a question of your patients not getting to that point. If you have $4,000 worth of medical expenses, you can't work, at least for 1 day. So I think that your medical expenses and your pain and suffering are a little bit of who shot John. But you are entitled to the amount of money to have your car fixed. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $62.31. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I wasn't debilitated to the fact that I could not work.
If he's injured, he's injured.
It was debilitation to the fact that I was suffering pain.
I can't say I don't have his body.
I think he got what he deserved.
She's Judge Judy. She did her job.
And now the next case.
Yes, case number 242 on the calendar in the matter of Hale, Stevens versus Gutierrez. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat.
Mr. Stevens, Ms. Gutierrez and you used to be an item. You were boyfriend and girlfriend for a while. Is that right?
That is correct.
And you are currently attached to Miss Hale.
I'm currently seeing Miss Hale. That is correct.
According to the complaint that I have, the two of you say that Ms. Gutierrez did not accept the breakup well, and she has embarked upon a course of conduct that is harassment. She's vandalized your property. She's repeatedly written notes, spray painted your car, spray painted your house, and you want her to stop this harassment. You have a series of police reports, 7 or 8 of them, over a period of several months. You want $4,000 in damages. Ms. Gutierrez says there is no way that she's responsible for any of the damage that you claim. As a matter of fact, she can prove that to me because she was hospitalized and she had just undergone some major surgery at a time when you claim she was running around spray painting your house. And she is counterclaiming because she says because of your complaints about her to the police, she lost her job. How long were you and Ms. Gutierrez together?
Approximately 26 months.
Did you live together?
No, ma'am.
And when did you stop seeing each other?
We formally broke it off December of 2003. While she was in hospital in January and February, I visited her. It was a life-threatening surgery. During that time, I was very explicit that I didn't want to maintain a relationship as a boyfriend-girlfriend.
You mean right after her surgery?
Correct.
That was in 04, January and February of 04.
Yes.
Okay.
The last time I actually spoke to her about the relationship was probably the earliest part of June.
Well, between January and February and the early part of June, were you together? Did you see each other?
We went on a camping trip in May as friends.
How do you go on a camping trip
Well,
with
we were
somebody?
going to try the experience.
Listen to me.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you go with somebody on a camping trip in May that you're told you don't want a relationship with several months before, and then tell me you went as friends?
The reason was I don't believe that that's usually a healthy thing, but I thought that she would be mature about it.
Being mature about what?
To be able to be a friend after you've been in a deep relationship with someone, and to handle it as friends.
So you decided to handle it as friends by going away on a camping trip together. Now, let me ask you about this camping trip. How many people went on the camping trip?
It was just the two of us.
And And did you have one tent or two?
We had one tent.
And did you share that tent, or did you sleep on the sofa?
No, we shared the tent.
Were you intimate during the course of this camping
No,
trip?
ma'am, we were not.
Is that true?
That's correct. It's kind of hard to do anything in a tent.
Where there's a will, there's a way. So what happened during this trip in May?
Well, we talked about a lot of things. I told her she still had feelings for me and voiced that to me, and I told her that I didn't want to continue, that I wanted to start seeing other people, and I encouraged her to do the same.
How long was this camping trip?
It was just a weekend.
When did you have this conversation with her, on Friday or Sunday?
In regard to...
Not wanting to have a relationship with her anymore.
Well, it had been sort of ongoing. I can't recall it like the specific time.
Your Honor, we never talked about it. We went out and had a good time. The following weekend was Memorial Weekend. I spent the entire holiday weekend with them.
That sound right, sir?
I only recall the camping trip.
Well, let's try to recall the following weekend. She said she spent the entire weekend with you.
I know that what I do...
She's going to be able to prove everything that she says. I want you to trust me, so I want you to think hard. We're not talking about so long ago, sir. You went camping. She says the following weekend was Memorial Weekend, and you spent the entire weekend with him. Is that right? Where?
At his home.
At his home?
Yes.
Not in your home?
Friday through Monday.
You didn't have a tent there where it was difficult?
We slept in the same bed, Your Honor.
Think hard.
I am, Your Honor, and I do not recall that. I'm being completely, brutally honest with you, Your
Okay,
Honor.
well, if you don't recall it, she does.
I do, Your Honor.
Okay, so what happened at the end of that Memorial Day weekend, Ms. Gutierrez?
We just had a good weekend. We made a nice steak dinner that night. Always ate underneath his hut. He's got a beautiful yard.
Well, when did he tell you that it was over?
We never talked about it.
How did you find out it was over?
On June 2nd, he was supposed to go with me to a Japanese dinner with a friend of mine, and he backed out. After dinner, I went to the club looking for him.
What club?
It's the Texas Tux.
Is that where he works?
That's where he picks up his women.
Did you find them?
No, ma'am.
When did you speak to him, if at all, for him to tell you that it was over?
A week and a half after he met Annette on June 5th. He was seeing her, but I didn't know anything about it until a week and a half later.
Miss Hale, when did you meet Mr. Stevens?
June 12th.
6/12.
Yes, ma'am.
Where did you meet him?
I met him at the Tux with some friends.
At the Texas Tux?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were immediately attracted to him?
We got along well. Great conversation. Over the next few weeks, we would meet for a drink or dinner or, and that was it.
Did he tell you that he had been in a long-term relationship?
Sure did.
What did he tell you about it?
He had been broke up with her since December 14th.
Okay, that's what he told you?
Mm-hmm.
That he had been out of the relationship for at least 6 months?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you now know that that's not true.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you know that before today?
No, ma'am.
We're getting on with
Yes.
this because I want you to hear this, Miss Hale. Before you put all your eggs in his basket, I want you to understand what you're dealing with.
Okay.
Bad enough that one lady got snookered. You don't want that to happen twice.
Mm-hmm.
And he will. Shh. Sorry.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. John Stevens and his girlfriend Annette Hale claim John's ex-girlfriend Janie Gutierrez has been spray painting obscenities on Annette's car.
Now, Mr. Stevens, Miss Hale tells me that you told her that you were in a long-term relationship which terminated in December.
That's when it formally terminated. That's when we had a
That's not what you told me 2 minutes ago, sir.
No, but I'm just saying, what happened, that was the formal end of the romantic relationship. I did have a continued relationship, but it was not a romantic one with Ms. Gutierrez.
Well, maybe you weren't romantic, sir. Did you tell Ms. Hale that you had been on a camping trip with her?
I told Ms. Hale about a lot of...
Did you tell her you had been on a camping trip with her 2 weeks before?
I don't recall if I told her about the camping
Well,
trip.
let's see. Did he tell you about the camping trip?
Yes, ma'am, but I was not aware they were alone. I was aware that there were a lot of people.
Oh, well, tell me about what he told you about the camping trip.
I thought they had gone with friends on a camping trip, and that it was strictly friendly, and that was it. And she couldn't accept that, and so he told her they couldn't be friends. That's what I was told. Yes.
There isn't a question in my mind, Miss Hale, that on Memorial Day weekend, they spent the weekend together. Because she remembers it down to what they had for dinner, and he just doesn't remember. Exactly. Just doesn't remember that. Could have happened, but he doesn't remember it.
Right.
Okay. Now, Miss Hale, I'd like you to tell me what kind of vandalism you suffered and when.
Okay. The first one started on June 25th. I have police reports.
Can I see it, please?
Pictures.
Was there a word written here? I can't tell what it says.
It starts, but it just never gets to that last letter.
Okay. Well, this happened June 25th. What proof do you have that Miss Gutierrez caused this damage to your car?
Well, I have 2 other police reports. The painting happened 2 other times to my car. I have pictures of it also. And the fact that on July 31st, we were trying to wait up and watch for her since it was becoming every week. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, the dog started going crazy, and she was out in the driveway with a can of spray paint.
But, Your Honor, she neglected to tell you that I got a prank joke from the police officer at 3:30 in the morning. They said that they had a witness for me spray painting the garage in her car, and they told me if I didn't come to the scene and bring my spray paint to the scene, if I had any spray paint, to bring it, otherwise they would arrest me. He made the prank call. So I came up there with the can of spray paint that was never used at 4 a.m. in the morning.
Did you call her?
No, ma'am.
That doesn't sound right to me, Miss Gutierrez.
It is, Judge Judy. They woke me up at 3:30 in the morning.
Where did you get a can of spray paint?
I bought 3 cans 6 years ago. It took 2 cans to spray one of my piece of furniture.
What color?
It was a burgundy.
Miss Gutierrez.
But the 3rd paint can I never used. I used both of them on the piece of furniture 6 years ago.
What color was the...
The 3rd time was burgundy.
Can I see it, please?
And the same night, 25 miles away, she painted his garage burgundy. And we have pictures.
Oh, yeah. Some pictures in my garage.
The gold paint was the 2nd time. That was the 3rd with the burgundy on his garage.
What date was this?
That one was July the 16th, the burgundy paint.
Now, Ms. Gutierrez, according to your answer, you say that it was impossible for you to have done this on the 16th of July because you had either just had surgery or you were recuperating from major surgery. What kind of surgery?
I broke my neck in January. I was paralyzed.
Until when?
I just got the machine off the back of my neck last week, and also my PICC line that I've had since January.
Well, that didn't prevent you from getting around in July. You were not bedridden in July.
I was on a machine, and I had home care come 3 times a week.
That doesn't make any sense.
I was restricted to
You're not
work and
answering
back
my
home.
question. Were you mobile during the month of July?
Yes, ma'am.
Of course, because at some point in July, you went over to the house at 4 o'clock in the morning, right?
When I got the phone call,
When you got the phone call, you were able to get up out of your house and go over to his house with a can of spray paint. So you were, in fact, mobile. So there was nothing physiologically wrong with you that precluded you from getting into a car and traveling, unless somebody drove you there. Did somebody drive you there?
No, ma'am.
You drove yourself?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Ms. Gutierrez, I would have been very angry with him, too.
But not enough for me to spray paint, Your Honor. I'm not violent.
That's not being violent. Not violent. It's being vindictive. It's a criminal act. It's not per se a violent act. But I don't see why you would want to spray paint her car. She got snookered in by this guy.
I have nothing against her, Your Honor.
Of course not. You shouldn't. The only thing that you both suffer from is from terrible judgment. You understand that the lady standing next to you has certain questions to ask you about what kind of character you have after today.
Well, ma'am, I'm an Eagle Scout, and I've tried to be as forthright and honest with her about a lot of these issues.
He never was honest with me. I found that out just recently.
He's an Eagle Scout.
Doesn't mean I'm perfect.
They're going to take your badges away from you, Mr. Stevens. How much did it cost you to clean up your car?
Well, we kept using different methods to get the paint off, but I've got estimates. It's practically down to the metal, because 3 times getting paint off, it takes it away. So I've got 2 estimates, and an estimate from Hertz on renting a car while it's getting fixed.
Did you get the paint off your garage door, Mr. Stevens?
Yes, ma'am, I did. I used some chemicals, but it's left it down to taking the top coating off.
So I think you ought to get a can of paint. And while you're painting, I think you should keep repeating to yourself, I cannot tell a lie, I will always tell the truth. I am an Eagle Scout. See what kind of trouble you cause when you're not honest with people?
Ma'am, I've tried to be honest throughout this ordeal.
No. Let me explain something to you, Mr. Stevens. If you told this lady back in January and February that you were no longer interested in a relationship with her, and she could not accept that, that would have been her problem. But if you were waffling around until you found something better and took her away on a camping trip, and then the following weekend either shared her bed or allowed her to share yours with a view towards perhaps I have nothing better to do this weekend, that means that what you are doing is you are playing fast and loose with somebody else's emotions. And that, sir, is very cruel. And then when you meet this lady, you give her a whole bunch of junk, painting a picture to her that is not accurate, because I'm sure that when she was suffering this damage to her car, you were telling her, I don't know what's wrong with her. I broke up with her in December. That's 7 months ago. She just can't accept it. She didn't know that you were leading her on over the course of the next 6 or 7 months, up until a couple of months before this happened. She didn't know that. That's not being honest, sir. And sometimes damage comes from not being honest. So I suggest you go out there and get yourself a can of paint, put on some jeans, and paint your garage doors. You get $1,400 to paint your car. Judgment for the plaintiff, and your counterclaim is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. Let's step out.
Obviously, there was a relationship that broke apart and someone couldn't let go.
It destroyed me because my plans were to marry him.
I don't think I got the whole truth from either one of them.
Sort of painted me today like I was very untruthful and not upfront and honest.
He lied not only to me, but his new girlfriend.
I feel like I'm a victim in this.
My advice to her is she needs to check out someone's history thoroughly before jumping in bed with them.
I shouldn't have to live in fear where someone's going to come by, destroy my property, and come over at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I hope this is the end of it.
Maintenance supervisor David Diekema is suing his stepson, 21-year-old cook Kirk Smith, for unpaid loans to help with his legal troubles. Kirk says he paid him back by mowing the lawn.
Come to order, all rise. Quiet, please. Thank you. Your Honor, this is case number 125 on the calendar in the matter of Diekema versus Smith. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Ladies, have seats, please.
Mr. Diekema, this young man is your stepson. Yes. I assume that this is your son. Is that right?
Yes.
How old are you?
21.
What's your first name?
Kirk.
According to you, you loaned Kirk some money. He got himself into some trouble.
Yes.
A couple of times. And you bailed him out.
Correct.
He hasn't paid you back, and he promised he would.
Correct.
The first thing Kirk says is that he did borrow the money from you, and in exchange for the money, he said he would mow your lawn for the summer, which he did.
Yes.
That was the payback.
Yes.
Right? That was his first excuse. The second excuse is that his mother told him he didn't have to pay you back. Right?
Correct.
And I can take my choice, one from column A or column B, depending upon how
Well,
it
they're
feels.
for separate things.
What was the first loan for, Mr. DiCamo?
Initially, the one where he was going to mow our lawn was we bailed him out of jail, and he was going to repay us, but he couldn't. And he was going to mow our lawn for us to help to repay that loan. And he did mow our lawn one time.
I mowed the lawn more than once.
Shh, don't answer.
Sorry.
Was he living with you at the time?
No, ma'am, he was not.
Was not. All right, well, tell me about this bailing him out of jail. Tell me about it.
That time was in February of 2003, and the bail was $325.
What was your offense, Kirk?
Driving on a suspended license.
What was the license suspended for?
It was suspended for an MIP.
What's an MIP?
Is a minor in possession.
Minor in possession of what?
Alcohol.
Okay. Is that the first time your license was suspended?
No, it isn't.
What was it suspended for prior to that?
For MIPs, a minor in possession of alcohol a couple times, and then for driving on a suspended while suspended.
Been arrested for anything else?
I've been arrested for, when I was a minor, for doing a gas and go.
You know, I've been a judge for a very long time. I'm pretty familiar with the penal law. I never heard of a gas and go.
Well, I went to a gas station and I stole gas, and then I left without paying for it.
So you stole gas?
Yes.
Safe to say, Kirk, you don't abide by the rules.
I try to. I've made some poor mistakes.
You've made a lot of mistakes.
Yes, I have.
Okay. So, $325 was the first bail.
Yes.
And is that what he was supposed to pay back by mowing the lawn?
Yes.
And how many times do you say you mowed the lawn?
I mowed it at least a couple of times, and plus
At least a couple.
It was for more than just the 300. It was for my probation fines that were also with that, and plus for another fee that I'd gotten for counseling.
Fine. $325, and what were the probation fines?
I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was somewhere around $280.
Okay, $280.
And then the counseling classes were about $350.
$955. Okay. So, right?
That's right.
So, stepfather says you mowed the lawn once. You say I mowed the lawn at least a couple of times. So what you're telling me is, how much property do you have, Mr. Deacon?
It's approximately half an acre.
So you think that you're worth almost $500 a mow for half an acre? Kirk, is that what you're telling me? Doesn't that sound stupid to you?
It does sound stupid.
It sounds, it does sound stupid. Well, I'm glad you at least say it does sound stupid. Because according to your stepfather, let's say you took your stepfather's figure of $325, and if you mow the lawn twice, according to you, that's $160 a mow. That's even high for half an acre, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
But it's not $500 a mow for half an acre. So you see, what I'm trying to get across to you, Kirk, is if you think that you're going to second guess the answers to these questions, don't do it.
I'm not just second guessing.
Yes, you are, sir. Okay. Because I just made you look very foolish, which wasn't your intention, I assume.
No.
Is this your girlfriend?
Yes.
So I assume you don't want to look like a fool in front of your girlfriend. Did he just look foolish?
I suppose.
You wouldn't think he's worth $500 to mow half an acre, would you?
I don't have a half an acre.
You know what half an acre looks like?
Yes.
You think that that's a lot of money to mow half an acre?
Yeah. Might be a
Yeah,
little too
unless he cuts it with the tweezers. When he only mowed the lawn once, did you say to him, hey, Kirk, the deal was you're supposed to mow the lawn for the summer?
I never see him, so, I mean, I came home from work, the lawn was mowed, and that was it. And he rarely ever talks to me. We never have contact, and he hasn't spoken to me in quite some time. So, no, I did not get the opportunity to do that.
Step up. What about you? Did you call your son and say to your son you were supposed to come over and mow the lawn?
That was originally for the $325. He had made a payment of like $100, I think, originally on that.
You gave him $100?
Yes.
Kirk, when you make a partial payment, that's evidence of a loan. Do you know that? I just taught you a piece of law. What's next?
For the next time, we had to pay court fines and court fees of, well, there were several. There was $918 to the 59th District Court. There was $200.
What is that? Was that for?
That was, he was either going to go to jail or we paid $918 to keep him out of jail.
Was that a different time, Kirk?
It was for the driving unsuspended.
Well,
That's
you
the
had
only violation they bailed me out of jail for.
You had several of those, according to you.
Yes, I have had several, but that was the only one that they've bailed me out of jail for, the only time they've bailed me out of jail for anything.
Well, that's $918
And I'm
was court
deeply
costs.
under the impression, because in Zealand, the police I had got pulled over, and a police officer said that I was told on by Mr. and Mrs. Bell for driving on a suspended license. And so I was under the impression that my mother is the one who's told on me for driving on suspended and got me the bail fines, and I've been under the impression that she bailed me out of feeling sorry. And it's not something I've brought up to her because, you know, I don't...
Just a minute. So what you think is that your mother notified the police that you were driving on... I'm speaking.
Yes, ma'am.
That you were driving on a suspended license because you were driving on a suspended license for the second time. And that you believe that the reason she bailed you out of jail was because she felt guilty about having told the police that you were breaking the law. Is that what you're telling me? I just want to make sure that that's what you're telling me.
Yes, Your Honor, but...
All right.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Deekema says his stepson, Kirk Smith, owes for loans to bail him out of jail. Kirk says his mother forgave the loan.
How much did you lend him altogether?
Altogether, it was $3,476.
And how much did he pay back?
$1,150.
Okay, Kirk, you got 30 seconds to convince me that you don't owe your stepfather $2,326. And your time starts right now.
Well, I feel that, you know...
Forget mowing the lawn.
I've forgotten about it. They haven't been, you know, done much for me, and this time that they helped me out, they told me, it wasn't my mom that told me I didn't have to pick it, it was Dave. He said, you know, don't worry about it, you know, get yourself on track and all that kind of stuff. And that is why I feel that I don't owe that.
I did tell him at one time that he did not have to worry about making timely payments because he could not make the payments, and that it was okay if we stretched it out beyond the original time that we set up, he and I agreed upon.
Which was what time?
We agreed upon 1 year to pay this money back, and so there were several times where he could not make any payments to me, and I said that that was okay, we'll just stretch the loan out longer, but that did not mean that he did not have to pay that
You did
money
not
back.
forgive the loan, you just gave him additional time to pay it.
That is correct.
Did you ever tell your son he didn't have to pay back the money?
No. No, it was Dave that told me that.
Well, that's not what you say in your answer. In your answer you say it was your mother.
Well, because earlier you asked me and you said that my mom told me it was Dave, and sorry, I mistakenly said the wrong person. I'm correcting myself now. It was Dave that had told me that, and he did say that.
You make a lot of mistakes, Kirk.
Yeah, I do.
Where are you working now?
I work at the New Holland Brewery.
Oh. Yeah, all these people think that that's very funny. I mean, it's rude of them, but there is a certain honesty about it that is inescapable. You owe your stepfather $2,326. Take care of your responsibilities. You're 21 years old?
Yes.
Stop making mistakes. You're getting too old to make mistakes.
Yeah, I know.
And I would suggest that you stop making mistakes, too. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I would like to see us move forward and be able to look beyond this.
I've never really, you know, gotten to know him to begin with.
Hopefully everybody can learn that this was a lesson and forgive.
The police officer in Zealand had told me that somebody had called the cops and he made inclination on who it was.
Just hope he learns from it, that's all.
I can't really say there's been much of a relationship to begin with, so...
I hope that we can have a relationship in the future.
Lucinda Noble is suing her sister, Tiffany Acuna, for rent and property damage.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Case 2109, Noble versus Acuna.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Miss Noble, this is your sister.
Yes, ma'am.
Older or younger?
Younger.
Any other siblings?
Many.
How many?
I have 5 sisters and 4 brothers.
And you have kids. How many children do you have?
I have 3 daughters.
How old are they?
18, 15, and almost 12.
And you?
I have 3 children, and they are 10, 5, and 2.
There came a time when, that was in August of 2021, according to your complaint, that you were having some housing difficulties with your children.
No, that's not true.
Well, Miss Noble, what led you to believe that your sister was having some housing difficulty? Because you start your complaint by indicating that she was about to become homeless.
Her house that she was living in was being put up for sale.
So the house that you had been renting,
Correct.
for how long?
About 2 years. I'm not really sure. It was well
Was
over
being
a year.
sold.
Well, I didn't know that until I gave her my notice after I'd already previously asked my sister if we should move in.
So you approached her about you moving in with her.
Yes, correct.
And do you own your own home, Miss Noble?
I do.
Where you were living there alone with your 3 children?
Yes.
Okay, and how much rent were you paying?
$750.
Now, when you decided to move in with your sister, what rent was discussed?
Well, she had told me about $400 is what she wanted.
Okay, so she said the rent was $400 per month, and that was starting August 1st?
Right.
So this is what part of this case is about. Part of the case is about rent. You lived with your sister from August 1st, 2021 to a date in 2022 when you finally removed all of your property.
Kind of. I did not remove all of my property, but I removed what she allowed me to.
To remove on what date?
I'm going to say it was mid-May, but I'm not sure.
May of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
So we have August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. So between 9 and 10 months. For the 9 or 10 months that you were there, how many times did you pay her $400 in rent? She's going to have a list.
I have a list too of our.
And you have a list. So why don't you take a look at it and give me the exact number of months?
The time I paid her $400 was, I think, only one time, and there was other times I paid her different amounts. But our agreement was because I bought all the groceries, we just kept track on this app, which has a list. I paid way over $400 in total.
Well,
so our agreement had changed.
Just a second.
Okay.
You have an app 10 months.
Mm-hmm.
How much did you spend on that app?
12,000 something. It's right in here on the list.
Take a look, because you're going to show it to me.
I paid total $10,411.
Okay, and she?
She total was $11,291.
And that was to cover groceries, food, gas money.
Her phone was under mine.
This is something that I'm going to have to simplify. There came a time when there were issues with regard to you not paying her $400 a month rent. And you discussed it with her, correct? And in what month was that?
April.
It was before April. It was before I had gone on vacation.
What month and year?
December of 2021.
So what I'm reading in December of 2021, you had a dispute about how much you were spending, how much you weren't spending, and that $400 was not being forthcoming just for rent. You see, I can understand that the two of you decided to split bills, everything other than the $400 in rent. You each have 3 children. You're 2 adults. Let's get to December. Was it the beginning or middle of December that you had this discussion about just pay $400 a month and we'll deal with it?
Maybe the middle.
Okay. So we have January, February, March, April, and you moved out in May.
Correct. I was kicked out illegally. Yes.
In May.
Yep.
Left in May. So that's 5 months. It was suggested by your landlord that just give me $400 a month and we'll split groceries.
In April, I have the proof of the text.
Just a second. So we have January, February, March, and April. 4 months. Did you give her $400 a month for those 4 months?
Nope, it was never discussed before then. I have the proof that it was discussed in April.
I'd like to see it.
Thank you.
It was discussed in April again.
Okay, just a second. I just want to see the proof. Well, show me if you have proof of an earlier conversation.
I don't.
Believe that there was an earlier conversation. Let me see the one that occurred in April.
It was mainly the receipts.
I'm not getting involved with that at all. Right now, you had a place to live with your 3 children for much less than the $750 a month that you were paying at another residence.
Right. And I spent way more on groceries. I did all the groceries.
Whatever. Your children didn't eat more.
Right, and my children
Okay.
didn't live there the full time.
I don't care.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can I look on my phone? It might be faster. Is that okay if I show you the text?
I don't care where you
Okay.
show it to me. Just show it to me.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. So I apologize. Okay, apologize. Sorry. On April 24th. So if you want, and then you can scroll down because she kind of keeps for a couple days.
Oh, that wasn't an agreement, madam. These were final acts of desperation to get you to pay $400 a month. Here.
That was the first time I'd heard, about her.
Oh, no. That wasn't the first time you heard about it.
Right.
Because the first line is $400 better be under my door.
Right.
So that's not the first time you heard about it.
Right.
That's an act of desperation. Okay, so you had this conversation with her in December, and she was there until May. And according to you, you only paid $400 once. That's $2,000. By the way, how are your children supported?
I work. Well, I work, yes.
Is that a full-time job or a part-time job?
It was part-time.
Well, you don't support yourself and your 3 children with a part-time job. Do you get any child support for them?
I did get child support for 2 of them, yes.
For 2 of them?
Mm-hmm.
How much child support do you receive?
$300.
$300 a what?
A month.
Do you get any other assistance?
Yes, I had food stamps.
Mm-hmm. Do you still have food stamps?
Yes.
How much a month?
For something, I'm not exactly sure.
And when you bought food for the household, you used the food stamps as well as your other money from your part-time job, and got it, $400. So far, you owe your sister $2,000. That's for back rent. Now, you want to go through the damages that you allege that your sister caused?
Yes. So I had 2 couches, and those went away.
What do you mean both went away? What does that mean?
She got rid of them.
While she was living there? Mm-hmm. And you knew about it? In what month?
It was when I came back from vacation. My things were gone.
I'm not following. You were supposed to be gone for 2 weeks, according to her.
No, I was gone for 3.5 weeks.
You were gone for almost a month. Mm-hmm. She was babysitting for your children.
They don't really need babysat. They're older.
Well, your 12-year-old can't live by herself without a mother for a month.
No.
Okay. And your 18-year-old does what?
She works at a hotel.
So she works during the day or at night?
She didn't at the time. She was at 17 at the time.
You're not going to leave a 17, a 14, and an 11-year-old alone for a month?
Of course not.
Okay, so they were home with your sister?
Yes.
Let's get back to the initial question. I forgot what my question was before I went off on this tangent. Couches.
The couches.
That's where we're at.
Yes.
So you went away for a month, and when you came back, couches were gone.
Couches, the whole house had transformed into basically her house.
I don't care, basically her house. I want to know what was missing.
So the couches were missing.
Okay, which couches? Couches from where to where?
So the couch from the living room, it was a sectional, and the couch from the basement.
Living room and basement. What happened to those couches?
Oh, they were gone a long time before, and I can prove you a text of her saying that they were gone before I even moved in, actually in August. She knew, and her daughter and her boyfriend helped me load them up and take them to the dump. She, in fact, told me she was getting rid of a lot of old furniture she did not care about. I have pictures.
Just a second. What you have is proof that those 2 items were disposed of before she went away on vacation.
Way before I moved in.
Okay. Now, Miss Noble, your sister says that she has proof that those 2 couches were disposed of well before you went away on vacation. If she does, I'm not going to be happy with you. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. Were those 2 couches gone before you went on vacation?
I can't recall, but I believe she wanted to make room for her furniture.
Just a second. Were those 2 couches gone before you went on vacation for a month?
I know the basement couch wasn't.
Okay. I think you're full of baloney.
She started giving my niece video games, movies, my food storage containers. She was just giving my things away.
Okay. I went to graduate school after I finished with high school for 9.
Lucinda Noble claims her sister, Tiffany Acuna, owes for rent and property damage. Tiffany is countersuing for an illegal lockout and filing a false CPS report.
Okay, let's go. Property taken without permission. What property did she take without your permission?
Okay, so
how far she owes you for rent?
The TV stand, she broke it and threw it under the trampoline.
What's next?
The weed trimmer, she took that. She started giving my niece my belongings while I was gone. She started giving my niece video games, movies, my food storage containers. She was just giving my things away.
Okay, she owes you for rent. I went to graduate school after I finished with high school for 9 years. I'm not dealing with Tupperware. So far, she owes you $2,000 for rent.
Okay, and then there was also the wall damage, the windows, the blinds,
just a second. What wall damage and where?
The wall damage is from the room that she was staying in and the room that her boys were staying in.
May I see the damage that you're referring to?
Here's the one more of that, and then here's the blinds, and this was damages from her cat.
Well, this I can't see at all. Okay, so that I can't see at all. And if you're talking about nail holes, I'm not interested in nail holes where there were pictures, cutting them up. I don't know what this is a picture of. Tell me.
That's where her cat clawed up the carpet to get into her room.
Did you replace the carpet?
Not yet.
Do you have an estimate for replacing or patching that carpet?
They don't make that carpet anymore.
Okay, I don't know that. How did these blinds get broken?
I'm not sure. Are those the ones that were in my bedroom or the kids' bedroom? I really don't know, to be honest. But I do feel like I remember them being broken, but I just don't remember if they were broken when I already moved in or not. I really don't know, ma'am. I mean, honestly, I knew they were broken. It's like I'm remembering, but the house, like I said, was not in a good condition when I moved in.
Okay, I'm not talking about the rest of the house.
My daughter is actually, Tiffany told her that she knew they were.
She doesn't remember. You tell me that these blinds were in good condition before she and her family moved in.
Yes.
She says she doesn't remember. I have to rely on what you say to me because that's not ordinary wear and tear.
No.
Do you have a bill for new blinds?
From Lowe's, I have the estimate of what it will cost to replace them.
Okay, I'd like to see it. You do have a cat?
Yes, I have one cat.
Okay.
She has multiple.
So we're talking about $47.98.
Times 2.
Okay. Anything else? Any other?
For 2 blinds.
I only see one.
No, those are 2 different windows.
Oh, times 2. You're right. Anything else?
I have to remove the junk that she left at my house.
I was not allowed at her house.
What else?
That's...
Okay, if you have to think that hard, then we're finished. We're moving over to the countersuit. Okay. Counterclaim is for an illegal lockout. Okay, let me run through this illegal lockout and dispose of it quickly. The illegal lockout that you're referring to happened when your sister, who shouldn't have, took the door off your bedroom.
Correct.
She says she took the door off your bedroom because you weren't paying close enough attention to your children.
Correct.
And I assume she's talking about the 2-year-old.
Correct.
And when she took the door off your bedroom, you called the police.
Right, yep. I called the police. I have the incident report.
Yes, you called the police, and the police came, and when the police came on, do we have the date?
26th April.
The police arrived, and they told her she couldn't lock the door, and you were let in.
Correct.
Okay, so not egregious enough for me to have to deal with 2 sisters fighting. But the other part of your claim is that your sister filed a false CPS report.
Right.
And first, how do you know a CPS report was called in?
Well, they called me.
Child Protective Services.
Right, they did call me. But first, I actually had the phone call from my sister, my witness, who is here right now, because she had pre-warned me because she had gotten the phone call from this sister saying, Lucy is going to call on you.
Okay. Do you want to step up?
Sure.
Tell me your name.
My name's Stephanie Aslett. I'm the older sister from these 2. Yeah.
When did you have a conversation with Miss Noble about the defendant's children?
The same night that the cops were called. Tiffany had called me because Lucy's daughter had crawled through the window and opened the door.
So you spoke to Lucinda?
Yes.
On April 26th?
Yes.
Did you call her or did she call you?
She had called me because she wanted to let me know that the cops had been
Do you recall that conversation?
Yes, I do.
Okay, tell me about the conversation.
She called to let me know that she was letting me know that since I was the only one probably capable or in this position to take on a child, if CPS was involved, because the 2-year-old would not be able to go to his father. He was in prison at the time. And I was like, why are you calling and telling me this? Tiffany's a good mom. What's going on? And she goes, no, she's not. I've already called CPS and forewarned them that this is happening. She needs to be taken care of.
What's happening?
Apparently there was lice on her daughter when she was at her father's house, and the 2-year-old, apparently he was running around with a wet diaper.
Who was taken to their father's house?
The daughter that had the lice was...
The daughter is the 5-year-old?
Yes. And
okay, not the 2-year-old.
Yeah. She supposedly had lice while she was at her dad's.
Went to her father's, and that was sometime in April. Is that correct?
Yes.
And got head lice.
Well, he had told me. I wasn't for sure, but I'd let my sister know just in case that she may have lice. Let's check the girls.
Okay. And your sister was home at the time?
Well, no, she was never home. Everything was over text message.
Just a second. Was that when she was away?
She was not staying at the house. She was not at the residence. She was staying at her boyfriend's house that was there.
Lucinda was staying at her boyfriend's
right.
house?
Yes.
Okay. And that's on the 26th?
Yes.
Is that after the police were called?
That was prior to. Supposedly the lice was prior to, and that's why she had called them prior to that night. And she was letting me know that she had called them and that I needed to be prepared to take on a 2-year-old.
What did you tell her?
I asked her why she would call them, what was going on, and I said, this is ridiculous. You know that this is ridiculous? And she goes, no, it's justified. And I said, I don't understand.
Did she tell you why?
Yeah, she tried to tell me that...
well, tell me exactly what she said to you. Why is this justified?
She made the comment that
so she
Tiffany has not been there.
Okay, you had to ask her
My
why.
words to her were, how do you know this when you're never there?
And she said?
I just know.
And gave you no more specifics?
No.
Okay, you want to tell me about that conversation?
I never said I was calling CPS. I said someone will. I know the person who did. It wasn't me.
Okay, well...
But I knew it was going to be happening.
Okay, Stephanie, let's get clear, okay? When you spoke to Lucinda and she said to you, in effect, are you prepared to take on a 2-year-old? Did she tell you that someone was calling CPS?
No, she did not. She said that she would be the one calling and that she has already contacted them because of the situation at her home.
Okay. Now, assuming you and your sister lived alone together, whether you spent time with your boyfriend, I know you have older kids, but you were away. When you were away for that month, were you staying with your boyfriend?
Yes.
Okay. And you left your kids alone, correct?
With my sister.
With your sister. Now, why would you feel comfortable about leaving your own children with your sister if you felt that she neglected her own children?
They didn't need the amount of care that a 2-year-old does.
Are you telling me that a 15-year-old doesn't need a lot of care and watching these days? Or a 12-year-old or an 11-year-old doesn't need a lot of watching and supervising? Is that what you're suggesting to me?
Not as much as a 2-year-old.
Well, one is a physical watching to make sure that it eats and drinks and is bathed periodically. The other two are far more difficult. You got to have eyes all over the place to watch a 15-year-old and an 11-year-old. Got to have your eyes on their computer. You've got to have your eyes on their iPad. You have to have your eyes on their schooling, on their homework, on their everything else. You take a month to go off with your boyfriend. That, to me, is not participating with your children, especially since you suggest that your sister, with whom you left your children, was neglecting her own children.
Your Honor, I would just like to say that I was reaching out to her a lot of the time, too, where I would get 1 week, there was nothing. She said, I'm sorry, I had no Wi-Fi. Her children were skipping school. They were not listening to me. They would not do their chores.
Do I need you to reinforce what I just said?
Right.
I don't need you to reinforce what I just said. You had had a history with methamphetamines. You refused to meet with caseworkers, according to the report you gave me.
I have other reports, too, if I may, please.
Lucinda Noble is accusing her sister, Tiffany Acuna, of refusing to pay for rent. Tiffany claims Lucinda wrongfully reported her to Child Protective Services.
Now, you have something you want to say?
Many things, actually.
Well, many things. I don't want many things. What I want, stand up. What I want to know is you're her daughter.
Yes.
Your first name?
Anna Noble.
Anna, what do you do?
I work front desk at a hotel.
Graduate from high school?
No.
Why?
I was pulled out and moved to Missouri.
Pulled out by whom? By your mother?
Yeah.
And when your mother pulled you out, how old were you?
17.
Had you been going to school before?
Yes.
In what jurisdiction?
It was an alternative school.
When you say an alternative school, what kind of an alternative school?
For troubled youth.
Tell me about your trouble. Was it behavior trouble?
It was many things. I was a very wild teenager.
Until when were you a wild teenager?
Until I sent her to live with her dad.
I didn't ask you any questions. So now you can sit down.
Okay.
I'm not going into anything else. Lucinda, so far you went away for a month with your boyfriend, leaving your 3 children who you say don't need supervision. How long were you home before you took the door off her bedroom?
I got back from vacation in February, early February, and the door was removed in April for a few hours.
Okay. Do you have any proof other than this conversation that the plaintiff called CPS?
I believe it is proof. Just the thing that was reported is something she would only know. Would that be considered proof?
Well,
okay.
Let me hear what was reported.
It was reported that I would not treat my child with lice. That was what the CPS report was, and it was unsubstantiated, and I have that all proof.
Okay. When your 5-year-old went to her father, she went to visit with her father, and children do get head lice. It happens periodically. Lots of children who go to school, who interact with other children, come home and they get head lice. I've had a lot of children, a lot of grandchildren, and it happens. And you usually treat it. I assume that her father did not treat it. Is that right?
He did treat it. He told me immediately.
So he treated it. So how do you know that the head lice was the nature of the complaint?
That's what was on the report.
May I see it? Your children weren't removed, except for your boy.
My one son, and then that lady.
And then returned.
All 3.
Oh, yeah.
All 3 kids were taken.
That's it.
Okay. Okay. There you go, sir.
Okay. You had a prior history with Child Protective Services.
Which I was unaware.
That's either a yes or a no.
Yep, yes.
And during the course of those prior proceedings, which were relatively current Child Protective proceedings, because that was in 2021, you were clearly drug tested by the Department of Social Services or Child Protective Services.
In 2018 or 19. This was at my doctor's prior when I was, and they reported it that I had failed one of my
tests. At that time, you had an open case and you tested positive for serious drugs.
Right.
Very serious drugs. And this says that while under the influence of those drugs, you drove your children to the doctor's office while under the influence.
Right.
That's the report.
Right.
Okay. These reports all seem to indicate that they tried to see you, but you kept canceling appointments with them and were a no-show.
Well,
okay, that's what this report says. You gave me the report.
Right.
So let me understand this. After coming in and making an assessment, Child Protective Services determined to file a petition on behalf of your youngest child. Yes, they did.
Okay, yeah.
Well, after everything I read there, I think that was probably a good idea. I don't know what happened with that. I assume that the petition was ultimately dismissed if you have your children back with you.
Right away.
Do you have your children back with you?
Yeah, right away, as soon as I went to court that day.
That's okay. They determined, after they spoke to you, and irrespective of either her motivation or anybody acting on her behalf, or somebody that she knew, or her, call Child Protective Services. The question that I'm presented with, was there a basis for concern about your children?
No.
And based upon the reports that I've read here, and those are reports that you gave me, that those serious questions about what was going on with the young children in your house deserved a second look. You had had a history with methamphetamines. You had a serious weight loss. You refused to meet with caseworkers, according to the report you gave me.
I have other reports, too, if I may, please.
Thank you. I'm not finished.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Because if you've been in family court, as I was for 25 years, often incidents are called in of suspected child abuse and neglect. A caseworker goes out, takes a look, and says, I'll continue to watch it, but I don't have to file a case. It hasn't reached the level where I think that I should file a case and remove a child. In this case, Child Protective Services came and tried to do an investigation, which according to the worker, you evaded. You missed appointments, you rescheduled, you didn't show up.
One time.
And then, not one time. They also had a prior history of you involving drugs, involving driving your children under the influence of drugs. Recent history, didn't happen 20 years ago. If it happened 2019, this says 21. If it happened 2019 or 2020, that's still recent history.
Okay.
So whoever called, it was worth, according to this caseworker, they had sufficient information based upon what they saw and what they knew to remove the 2-year-old. So that part of your case is dismissed, which is the only part of your counterclaim that I was really entertaining. You owe your sister $2,096, $2,000 for rent and $48 for, I forget what it was, blinds. Thank you, we're done.
My
This court is
property?
adjourned. We're done.
I had drug tested every month during the time that this happened, and it was like an oopsie under my doctor's supervision.
I've just helped her, and she takes advantage and takes advantage.
You don't call CPS on your sister when you're the one that took off to Africa for 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
And this whole thing wasn't about money. It just, I needed someone to tell her, look, you can't take advantage of people anymore.
She's still the outcast that everyone's upset with.
I'm not the outcast, though, but I'm definitely not helping her anymore.
So we've seen it a lot here, claims for unsubstantiated CPS reports being filed and people seeking damages for that. So I'm just wondering, do you think there was a basis? Is that why, obviously, you didn't rule in her favor on the claim of the false CPS report? So there must have been something in there that...
You know, when people use Child Protective Services as a retaliation for other behavior, that's always abhorrent. But there are some situations where CPS may be called because someone knows that there is an abuse or neglect and has not done it until the other person irritates them. Well, that's not a false CPS report. Maybe motivated by something else, but that's not a false report. And so, in this case, the defendant had a history with CPS, current history with CPS that was relatively serious. Well, then it was a good thing that CPS went.
Because that would be basis itself.
It's
for
basis
the claim.
itself, basis itself.
That alone. And just because she was cleared at the end of the day and has her children back now doesn't mean that it was an unsubstantiated claim.
Oh, no, they're watching. Yeah. They're watching, and they should be watching. I don't think any of them are bargains. The 18-year-old daughter who was here, who was a troubled child, according to her, and never graduated from high school, although she's working, because her mother moved her around also a lot, was certainly an inadequate caretaker for the other 2 younger children. She goes off for a month with her boyfriend. It's amazing how some children just grow up by themselves. Sometimes it works out okay. I don't know, somehow I felt sorry for all of those kids, that they're not getting all the loving and nurturing that they should.
Hopefully, maybe after today, she turns it around.
Maybe.
Parties, please step forward.
Fenshia Jenkins is suing her former roommate, Victoria Barnes, for rent and a security deposit.
Miss Jenkins, you were a short-term roommate of the defendant's.
Yes, ma'am.
She put an ad on the internet.
Yes, it was in a Facebook group. I was referred by my college. It was for subleasing, rentals, apartments, of that sort.
A room?
Yes.
Do you have a copy of the ad?
I actually do.
I would love to take a look at it.
No problem.
What college do you go to?
University of Alabama at Birmingham.
Miss Barnes, you were pretty specific in this. It says it's average about $800 a month. Utilities included, unfurnished, looking for a female roommate, sublease, personal, bedroom and bathroom, pool, tennis, laundry site. Must be willing to complete a background check.
Yes.
Okay. And did you go to look at the room?
Yes, ma'am.
On what date?
It was the same day that I signed the sublease, which was, I'm so sorry.
It was February the 10th.
No, I moved in on February the 10th. That is incorrect. We signed our sublease on, I believe it was actually maybe January 22nd.
Does it have a date on it?
This only has the date for when I will be moving in and
May
moving
I
out.
please see it?
The date is on the signature page.
Okay. It's on the last page of that packet.
You don't have to help her prove her case.
I want to make sure she got it right.
You don't have to help her prove her
Yes,
case.
ma'am.
Well, who crossed this out? It says subleasee is one of, first it said one, that's crossed out, and then it said 2 total tenants occupying the premises.
I did cross that out because it is 2 of us. And I accidentally wrote one of one, but it's 2 of us total. And that was crossed out on the date that I signed it.
Is that correct?
Yes, it was quite a few pages on there.
So it was agreed that there would only be the two of you occupying the premises.
Not completely correct.
That's what it says, that there would be two people
Yes, ma'am.
occupying the premises. Am I correct?
In the initial agreement, I made it clear that...
No clear. This says the sublessee's interest in the sublessee is one of two total tenants occupying the premises. That's what the lease says, which means there are only two people, according to this sublease, which is signed, who will be occupying the premises. That's all it says. I haven't finished the next page yet, but that's what the lease says. Not what you made clear, not what you might have said outside of this. This is what's binding.
Okay.
And this indicates that the subleasee, that's you,
Yes, ma'am.
does not need to obtain her permission.
Not at all.
Overnight guests, which would make sense that she doesn't need your permission to have overnight guests.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is what your case is about. Now I've read this agreement. You moved in February 10th?
Yes, ma'am.
And started to have difficulty because Miss Barnes has a boyfriend. That would be you.
Yes, ma'am.
And he was there a lot.
No, that was not a problem.
Well, according to you, it was a problem when he had his own key.
Yes.
And he came, according to you, unannounced.
Yes, ma'am. Alone.
Well, it doesn't say that he has to be announced. I can understand it if he was occupying the residence with his own key and there all the time. That certainly would be in violation of the lease. Would you stand up for a second? Tell me your name, sir.
It's Sean White.
Are you and the defendant currently living together now?
No.
Have you ever lived together?
No.
Can you tell me why it would be that you would have a key to her premises?
Well, she is my fiance. We've been together almost...
Because she's your fiance?
Yeah.
When did she become your fiance?
Around a year ago.
And is there any reason why you're not living together?
Yes. In recent...
Yes. You're going to tell me.
Yes, ma'am. I'll tell you. In recent events, I just lost my father, and I'm trying to launch my trucking company and get that off the ground, so it's just... wouldn't be the best thing right now.
How far is your residence from your fiance's?
About an hour and a half.
And her residence from your business?
I'm a truck driver, so I'm always mobile, but where I load at, she's usually close to it.
And that's when you stay at the house?
Yeah.
And how many times a week do you load your truck?
Close to her, maybe 2 or 3 times.
2 or 3 times a week?
Yeah.
So that means that you're spending either 2 or 3 nights a week at her house?
Yes.
Yes. And that's been going on for how long, sir?
Just this year.
So far, we're doing fine. You see, I don't yell unless someone provokes me.
Heard.
He seems like a very nice...
Vanshia Jenkins claims her former roommate, Victoria Barnes, owes for rent and a security deposit.
Mr. White, do you keep a certain amount of clothes at Miss Barnes' apartment?
No, Your Honor, they're usually in my truck.
When you're going to stay over, do you bring up a bag or do you bring up a backpack? What do you bring up with you?
A bag and a backpack.
Do you have toiletries in her bathroom?
No, ma'am.
You carry that with you?
Yes.
Now, when you're on the road, if you stay over 2 or 3 days a week at Miss Barnes's house and you're on the road, how many days a week are you on the road and sleeping either in your truck or at a motel or at a truck stop?
Between 2 and 3 days. It's all depending on where I go.
So that brings us to maybe 5 days a week or 6 days a week. And where is your home?
Aforementioned 1 hour.
Is that where your father lives?
I'm sorry, but he's passed.
He passed?
Yes.
Okay, so the house that you're staying in is his house?
Yeah.
Anybody else live there?
My mother.
So that 1 day a week you stay with your mom?
It's usually probably a Sunday when I don't have anything to do.
Do you stay at your mother's house?
Yes, that's my primary residence. Like it's maybe two days out of a week.
Mr. White, this is what we're getting. You see where we're starting to smile now? If you see your mother on Sundays and you're on the road half the week and you're at the defendant's house half a week, you can tell me from today until the cows come home that your mother's house is your primary residence. But if you look at it objectively, put your hand down. If you look at it objectively, you're on the road part-time. When you're not on the road, 3 times as many days a week you stay at her house. 1 day you stay at your mother's house, and you tell me that that's been going on since the beginning of the year, which would be January or so of 2022. That's what you just told me, and that actually makes sense.
I beg to differ, though. Like, the time that I stay there, it might be 8 hours, and then I'm back on the road.
I don't care.
And it's like maybe 2 days out of the week.
Now you can sit down, Mr. White.
Wait.
Okay, I get the scenario, and not unusual, you were unhappy with this more frequent access than you were advised of.
May I add, I was not unhappy with how much he was there. It was only the fact that he had came in by himself and she hadn't let me know. I only had told her that that made me uncomfortable, and I got kicked out for it.
That's not true, Your Honor.
Well, when you say got kicked out, I think you acknowledged that you gave her a 30-day notice to leave.
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And other than this issue of house guests, were there any other issues that you had with her?
When the situation happened, she texted me and asked me where I was. I told her when I got home that we can have a conversation, and that's when an argument ensued, and multiple arguments happened after that.
Were they all about house guests?
Just about, yes, ma'am.
And at the beginning, they were all about Mr. White.
Right.
Okay. And your sublease agreement actually specifically says that only 2 people are living there.
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. White has already made it crystal clear to me that he spends his time either on the road or at your house visiting his mom on Sunday. And that sort of makes this fuzzy. Okay, anyway, it didn't work out. He seems like a very nice man, nothing that frightens me.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you.
And he visits his mother on Sunday. The guy is a hero. Perfect for you.
Thank you.
So you moved out, you got another apartment, whatever it is. I don't know what you want from her.
I want the money that I gave her, period. And
What money?
So she made me pay her a security deposit.
No, just a second.
Yes, ma'am.
Security deposit.
Yes.
Fine. Did you get your security
No, ma'am.
deposit back?
Absolutely not.
How much was your security deposit?
$350.
Okay. Did you return her security deposit?
No, ma'am.
Okay. You have to return her security deposit.
Well, being as though she left the room damaged, I didn't feel like I needed to.
You have photographs of the damage?
I have stained carpets.
Just a second. Do you have photographs of the damage?
No, ma'am.
Good. $350. She gets her security deposit back.
Yes, ma'am.
What's next?
The remainder of the rent for the month that I moved out, which I moved out within.
Just a second.
Yes.
Did you pay her March's rent?
Yes, ma'am.
You did?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You paid that the beginning of the month?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And how much did you pay her?
$630.
Incorrect.
Clearly paid you February's rent when she moved in.
Yes, ma'am.
Did she pay you March's rent?
So she gave me...
That's either a yes or a no. If she paid you March's rent, did you get 2 months' rent from the plaintiff?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And she moved out.
Can I explain why I don't feel like I'm entitled to give her the money back? Because the apartment complex, when we got into the initial argument and I was made aware of the slander and the allegations that she was portraying against Sean and myself, I was told that being as though I made it legal on paper that she has 30 days to the resident, that she would still access to my apartment for the remainder of the month of March until the 17th of April. And also Sean has seen her sending people to my house, her coming in and out of my house when I was at work, supposedly gathering her things, but my personal belongings came up missing.
Oh,
and she had access
Hold on
to
one
it.
second. After March 17th, did you have any property in the apartment? Just be very careful what you say to me. After March 17th, you say you physically left the apartment. Did you have any property there? That's either a yes or a no.
May I confirm the date so I just don't give you false information? Okay, thank
Yes.
you. So the very last day that I was there was...
March 22nd.
Shh. You keep doing that. You keep doing that.
I'm sorry.
Okay, good.
Okay, so the very last day that I was there was on, I believe, March 20th.
Oh, then you owe for the month of March. Then you get your security deposit back, $350. We're finished. Thank you very much.
That's all, Judge.
What? That's what she gets, her security deposit back. That's it. She gets her security back. She doesn't get rent, doesn't get moving costs, doesn't get damages. She gets her security deposit back. Goodbye. Have a happy life. Have a nice lunch.
This court is adjourned.
I really just thought that everything was fairly normal until just the conversation about me.
A security deposit is the least of my concerns because I don't owe her rent.
Expressing my discomfort with her boyfriend being in the house alone with me.
For her to even mention him harming her in any type of way is not only offensive, but it's disrespectful.
It wasn't like, he was my personal friend or I met him anywhere else. I met him through her, so I just didn't want to be home alone with him.
Honestly, it's outrageous. The implicate that I do anything to her is it's beyond me.
My safety does come first. I put me first. I gotta put me first.
I wish her nothing but the best away from me.
I thought that the fiancé was absolutely charming.
I did too.
I thought he was such a nice guy.
Visits his mom on Sundays, has a job.
Hard-working, regular, stayed home while his dad was ill. Really a nice guy. But it was clear that he may say my primary residence is with his mother, but that's a visit on Sunday. When he can, he stays with his fiancée in the house. Clearly that was not part of the lease. But forget about that, Sarah. She's a tough broad.
Oh, a little bit of an attitude.
She had a little bit of an attitude. So I don't know.
It's always the nice guys that end up with
somebody with
women with the attitude.
He's got to watch his P's and Q's.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, I'm glad they're happy, and I'm glad that they're together in their apartment, which is probably the way she would prefer it anyway.
Yeah, agreed.
19-year-old Isabel Irwin is suing her father, Neil Irwin, for personal belongings.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Case number 27, Irwin versus Irwin.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Miss Irwin, this is your dad?
Yes, he is.
And you're 19?
Yes, I am.
According to what I read in your complaint, your parents divorced when you were 10.
Yes.
And your father was your primary custodian. You lived with him.
Yes, I did.
Did you graduate from high school?
Yes, I did.
When you were 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16, did you live with your father?
At the age of 15, I moved out because...
Okay, so at age 15, you moved out?
Yes.
Because here you said, when I was 18, my father kicked me out of the house for no good reason.
Yes.
Guess what? Well, you just told me that you left the house when you were 15.
Yes, and I lived with my mother for 2 years, and...
Okay, so from age 15 to 17, you lived with your mother.
Yes.
Is that because you were having difficulty with your father?
Yes.
Okay, and then you went to live with your mother?
Yes.
But that didn't last?
No.
So now, at 17, you go back to your father?
Yes.
And you stayed with him until you were 18?
Yes, correct.
So far, I have the fact that your family is a little dysfunctional, but that you had certain problems.
I moved out when I was 18.
Just a second. Would that be a fair statement, that you had some problems?
No, it would not be.
Okay. What high school did you graduate from?
It's a school partnered with the National Guard for kids that are off track to get them back on track.
Did you have to pay for that school?
No, they are paid by the government.
Could you look them up for me?
Yeah, it's a residential program for youths aged 16 to 18 who've dropped out of school or who are seriously behind in credits and need to catch up quickly.
Okay, so you were dropped out of school?
No.
Or seriously behind?
Yes.
Dropped out or behind in credits.
Okay. And how old were you when you graduated from...
I was 17 years old.
And so at that point, you moved in with your father?
Yes.
And why did you leave when you were 18?
He had evicted me.
Okay. And I'd like you to tell me your version of his evicting you when you were 18, because this case involves you're suing your father for items that he disposed of that were yours, and you want this court to award you $7,400 for the things that he disposed of that were yours.
Yes.
Okay. So tell me why you believe he evicted you when you were 18.
I believe he evicted me when I was 18 because I was buying my first car, and he got jealous of the car I had, and he stated that when I moved back in for the second time. He evicted me the second...
No. We're on the first time that your father evicted you, not the second time. The first time your father evicted you, I can ask him, or you want me to stay with you?
You can ask him.
Fine. Tell me why you evicted her the first time, which you did.
The main reasons would be that she agreed to pay rent, which she never did. She needed
working?
Off and on. I'd say over the past 2 years, she's probably had, from my guesstimate, 15 to 20 jobs, all ranging from an hour or a day, I think the longest being about 3 months. Can't maintain a job, would prefer to smoke pot all day in her room and hang out with her boyfriend, basically. Which at the time, for the first eviction, she did not know Corey.
Okay.
But she still does the same thing.
Yeah, well, that's unfortunate. That's what you indicate here. So that was the reason that you evicted her the first time. And that was maybe in June?
I would have filed that June 9th of 2021.
June. Okay. But she came back shortly thereafter, in October.
The sheriffs removed her August 13th, 2021.
Is that because you asked her to leave and she wouldn't?
It's a three-step process. And I had a 24-hour notice posted to the door after 34 days.
Well, she's your daughter.
Yeah.
So there must have been some discussion, Mr. Irwin, with her you saying to her, listen, this is not working out?
There wasn't a discussion, Your Honor.
Was not?
I served her the first notice. We talked about it.
Oh, you talked about it?
Prior to me filing. I told her I would do it. I don't think she believed me.
She knew you wanted her to leave as a result of that discussion.
Yes.
And she didn't.
She did not.
She had lived with you off and on, with the exception of 2 years that she lived with her mother, and part of it in a residential program. It's a residential program, correct?
Yes.
When she lived with you, she was 10 years old. Can you tell me, Mr. Irwin, from the time she was 10 until the time she was 18 and she was ultimately evicted, what items in the house she purchased? Bed, TVs, anything big?
She never purchased anything.
When she came back from her mother, what did she come back with?
I believe just a few clothes and a bag. She had to kind of run back.
And to the best of your knowledge, had your daughter maintained any sort of gainful employment the last 3 years?
No.
So other than the clothes she came back with when she was 17, there were no big-ticket items?
There were a few by the time I had to evict her the second time, but I would have furnished those, being, bed set, furniture,
bed.
Tempur-Pedic bed. I think that's part of what she's really wanting out of this $7,400.
Okay, so you purchased a bed?
Yes.
Because you didn't have one in the room where she was?
I was just trying to take care, yeah. I was using the room for my own purposes. I live alone until she moved back in, and usually welcoming of my daughter coming home, so I furnished a room.
Okay, so that's why you left the first time. The first time you left because he got annoyed that you were hanging around doing nothing and smoking pot.
I did pay rent,
right.
too.
Right.
No,
and weren't doing it much.
No, I was not smoking often.
We're not doing much, is what I said.
Yes, I had a job. I worked at the beginning of the year.
For how many days?
I worked there for about 3 months, and then I worked as a kennel technician for about 2 months.
What happened to both those jobs?
My dad, his alcoholism, he would never let me sleep in the room as I was paying rent, and he would lock me out. He would lock me out. He would lock me out, and he would flip the garage switch, so I wasn't able to get access to the house. I wasn't able to get clean, so I couldn't obtain the job, and my mental health wasn't there for that job, so that's why I took the kennel technician job, and that's when he evicted me.
Where are you living now?
With my boyfriend.
That's him?
Yes.
And where are you working now?
I am unemployed.
Sorry, that's easy. So now you're not working. Now nobody's locked you out. Nobody's made it impossible for you to work. And what kind of work does your boyfriend do?
He is construction. I do DoorDash.
Okay. Your boyfriend is construction?
Yes.
How old is he?
He is 20 years old.
You're Corey?
Yes, Your Honor.
Who do you live with?
My mom and her new husband.
How did I know that? How did I just know that? It's so perfect to be old that, I asked the questions. I could have asked the questions and answered the questions. So you and your girlfriend live with your mother?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you graduate from high school?
Yes, Your Honor.
And what's the name of the company that you work for?
Landscape.
Do you work for them full time?
Yes, I do.
For how long?
I've been working for them about 2 months now.
2 months?
Yes.
Prior to that, what did you do?
I worked for Chewy.
Chewy, the dog products?
Yes, Your Honor.
What happened to that job?
I just wasn't liking the job anymore, and I thought I could do a lot harder work, and that's what I strive to do, is just continue trying to be the best person I can.
And what does your girlfriend do all day when you're out in your landscaping job for the last 2 months?
She stays busy going to the gym and making sure that everything is in tip-top shape, and just bringing me lunch when I'm on my break for work.
And you're living in your mom's house. Be a fair statement. You don't have to be a math wizard, which I am not, because you don't have enough money to move out into your own place.
Yes, Your Honor.
Does your mom work?
Yes, she does.
Who else lives in the house?
Her newly husband.
Now, you have a room in your mom's house?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is it furnished?
Yes, Your Honor.
Who bought the furniture?
I bought the bed set, and...
Tell me when you bought the bed set.
I bought it about 2 years ago because we moved there recently.
So what you're telling me is you purchased a new mattress?
Yes.
With your earnings?
Yes, Your Honor.
And how much was it?
It was about $1,500.
And if you left the house, you would want to take your mattress because you bought it.
Yes, Your Honor.
You wouldn't take any of the other furniture in the house because you didn't buy it.
Yes, correct.
Whether it's your dresser or a TV in your room, your parents bought that.
Yeah.
The mattress you bought.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now you can sit. Show me that you gave him $3,000. I can't figure that you had saved $3,000.
I gave him that to purchase the mattress because that was the time I was purchasing my car.
How could you purchase a car? You don't work.
"19-year-old Isabel Irwin claims her father, Neil Irwin, owes for personal belongings."
Now, I'm going to sort of pull this together. Eventually, you moved back into the house after an initial eviction, and you weren't doing well, I assume.
Yes.
And then you came back a couple of months later and asked your father if you could move back in.
Yes.
And he said, okay.
Yes.
And that didn't work out. He was unhappy with the arrangement.
I was paying rent before. He was kicking me out, so I decided not to pay rent.
Whatever the reason, he wasn't happy with it. You were gone for a couple of months.
He evicted me, yes.
Yes. Well, he evicted you for a reason, Miss Irwin. You have to stop being a baby. He evicted you for a reason. He took you back because you went there. You said, I have no place to go. I assume, without going into specifics, because you look a little frightened, and I don't have to get that crazed with you because it sounds like a very sad situation. He said, it's not working out again. I want you to leave. And when you left, you did not, according to you, take your stuff. And your father, at some point after he received a text message from you, which I assume you have, sir.
I do.
Which said, have a nice life. After he received that, waited a while and disposed.
That was a statement I made because I asked him to help me fill up my tires because they needed air, and I saw him pull into the Safeway parking lot and leave with his groceries, and he never helped me.
Okay. So you said, have a nice life. And then you want a whole bunch of things from the house. Now, I want you to tell me, with your limited work history, which you have, hardly enough to sustain yourself, because in October you came back to him and said, I need a place to live. So I want you to tell me what you purchased.
I purchased the Tempur-Pedic bed.
And who did you purchase it from?
My father.
You purchased it from your father?
Yes, he made the original purchase and said I could just give him the money, which I did.
Okay. And how much did you give him for the mattress?
$3,000.
That's incorrect.
Show me that you gave him $3,000. I can't figure that you had saved $3,000.
I gave him that to purchase the mattress because that was the time I was purchasing my car.
How could you purchase a car? You don't work. You don't work.
The first one
this
was
doesn't tell me anything.
Transaction that
this doesn't tell me anything. You want to tell me that tells me nothing. You want to give that to her. I would have to find credible, Miss Irwin, that you had managed to save from your job that you had for 3 months while you claim you were paying your father rent $3,000.
It was the leftover money from me purchasing my car.
Oh, I don't believe that. For 1 second. Okay, you want to tell me about the mattress, sir?
Okay, simply put, I got one for myself when she wasn't living with me, and the mattress I furnished her with, it was a floor model. He gave me a good deal on it. I think it retails about $3,500. I got it for $2,300. My daughter and I did have an agreement that she could purchase the mattress for $1,800. However, as you may have figured out, that did not occur.
And this was after she moved back in October, or when she was...
Yep. Yes, it was.
After she moved back in October?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. The mattress is staying where it is. Okay. Now let's go to dresser, nightstand, and TV. So you acknowledge that none of those things you purchased, bed, dresser, nightstand, and TV.
No, I did not purchase them.
Okay. Now that's your father's. He threw out my clothes, shoes, and jewelry. Now, you were evicted.
Yes.
Was it an actual eviction? Did marshals come to the house?
No. I got served the eviction notice on June 30th. He illegally locked me out.
No. Just June 30th.
Yes.
So on June 30th, you were given an eviction notice that said that you had to be out on what date?
In 30 days.
Okay. So far, is that correct, Mr. Irwin?
It's fairly correct. I do have the 30-day no-cause notice to quit that she was served.
Okay. And on what date did you leave?
On July 1st, because he had thrown a camera.
Just a second.
Boyfriend.
You left on July 1st?
Yes.
Tell me how you left.
I packed a small bag and I had left.
You packed a small bag that contained what?
A few of my clothes and whatever I could grab for a few nights.
And where did you go?
To my boyfriend's house.
So you went to Corey's house?
Yes.
Do you have a laptop?
I do not.
Do you have a phone?
Yes, I do.
Did you take the phone?
Yes, I did.
You took some clothes with you, and you knew that you had an eviction notice, correct?
Yes.
Tell me what jewelry you allege your father threw out.
He threw out my necklace my boyfriend had bought me. He threw out...
Which boyfriend?
This boyfriend, Corey.
Tell me about the necklace.
He had purchased it for my birthday.
Okay. Stand up, Corey. Tell me about the necklace you purchased.
I had purchased it from K Jewelers. I had purchased it for about $250.
Okay. When?
On her birthday, just a little before.
When's her birthday?
February 20th.
Did she wear the necklace?
Yes, Your Honor.
Every day?
No, just on occasions, whenever we'd go out and do stuff and all that.
When she came to your house with her bag, did you ever see the necklace again?
No, I did not, Your Honor.
Do you know where this necklace is?
I do not.
Did you throw away a necklace?
I guess anything's possible because when she left and sent me the "have a nice rest of your life" text, it looked like a hoarder's room, so I guess anything could have been in there.
Who cleaned it up?
I did.
Didn't see a necklace?
Didn't see a necklace.
Okay. Were you looking for anything of value?
I wasn't looking for anything. To me, it looked like old clothes that probably hadn't been worn in years.
Okay.
I just wanted to clear out the room.
Fine. Have a seat. Other than that necklace, what other jewelry did you have?
I had some rings I purchased from Ojai, California on a trip I previously took for my dad.
Okay. What else? You took a bag of clothes. What specific, because you had jewelry, shoes. I assume you took some shoes with you because you were going to be there.
Not.
Well, you were wearing a pair of shoes.
Yes, I was. I was wearing my old shoes.
Okay. When you got rid of all of the stuff, Mr. Irwin, you didn't go through any of it?
No, I did not.
Did you give her any notice that she had 10 days, 2 weeks to get her stuff?
I did not give her notice.
On what date did you dispose of all of her stuff?
It would have been around July 20th, about 20 days after or so.
Okay. Well, but even according to your eviction notice, she had 30 days to vacate.
Well, if you read the actual eviction notice, it's 5 days. After 5 days, you have to file another part of the eviction notice, which is unlawful detainer, meaning that she is now there illegally. So she left within the 5 days, willfully.
I'm 19 years old, and I want to live to be 79. And right now, that doesn't look good for you. I'm telling you, you look troubled and older than your years.
"19-year-old Isabel Irwin has accused her father, Neil Irwin, of throwing out her personal property. Neil claims he paid for Isabel's belongings.
Okay, so you didn't file the next step.
I did not.
So she left within 5 days. That was the
Yes.
and she just left the place a mess.
A mess, yes.
Okay, who is this?
This is my mother, Janice Leonard.
Could you stand up, please, for a moment? Miss Leonard, how many grandkids do you have?
Well, from Neil to I have 6.
Did you and Miss Irwin get along?
Oh, yes. She came to, we lived in Idaho at the time. I had an equestrian center. So every summer she would be there all summer long. We taught her to ride. She had the best horses. She jumped. She was a fantastic rider. But as the years went on, it was just getting more difficult. When she turned 14, her behavior changed drastically.
Can you describe, I know that you moved back to where your son lived. And according to the answer, he gave you a key to the house. He was in Las Vegas on a trip.
That's correct.
Could you describe when you went into the house what Miss Irwin's room looked like?
Every time I would go over there, the house would be worse every single day. And there was a very strong, pungent smell, so I thought the dogs were going to the bathroom. Her room was a total disaster. There's clothes literally strewn, I don't know how tall, but 12 inches maybe. Nothing was ever picked up. And one day, before Neil came back, I said, this place is really smelling bad. And later I learned that they were smoking marijuana. They would be in the bedroom and giggling and in the bathroom together. And when I would come, she'd only be there for maybe 20 minutes and they both would leave. There was no respect, I have to say. I've seen her in action and she can be very nice and very polite, but there's a whole nother side that is actually very scary, to the point when she was years ago, 14, my husband and I were locking our bedroom door because we were afraid of her when she stayed.
Okay, thank you. Isabel, is that what they call you, or they have a
Yes.
Isabel. Word of advice, caution, you're 19?
Yes.
You look older. That's not a compliment. You seem like an intelligent young woman.
Thank you.
But I see issues there of blaming everyone else, and it's very possible that your father and your mother and other people share the blame in your issues. That's possible. But at this point in your life, Isabel, you're just starting, and you can either spend your life blaming somebody else, parents, grandparents, siblings, for where you are, or you can say, I have to get myself some help, and put a period, because I'm 19 years old and I want to live to be 79. And right now, that doesn't look good for you. I'm telling you, you look troubled and older than your years. Your father looks better. Your grandmother looks better. They look appropriate to their age and stage and clearer. So I think that you should get some help. I also think, Mr. Irwin, there were things in her room, and believe me, I have seen rooms like that. You know, I have been involved with lots of kids and grandchildren. Most of them grow up, and once they get a place of their own, they walk around with a bottle of Windex and Bounty and clean up after everybody's fingerprints. But if they're living in their parents' house or their grandparents' house, they live like slobs. Sometimes that never changes. But, you know, there's messy, and then there is dysfunctional. And what you are describing is dysfunctional. And I think if your daughter was honest, she would look and she would say, that's dysfunctional. You were in the room, Corey?
Yes, Your Honor.
Stand up. Would you describe your girlfriend's room in her father's house as evidence of being dysfunctional? Not a nom. Right here, Corey.
Okay.
Does her room look like your room?
No, it does not, Your Honor.
Okay. Would your mother permit your room to look like her room? It's not an answer, Corey. Would your mother permit your room that you're sharing to look like the room that was in his house where your girlfriend lived and you stayed occasionally?
No, Your Honor.
No. Okay, sit down. You should have looked for the necklace. He gave me an honest answer to everything that I asked him. So the necklaces was probably mixed in with a load of garbage that was there.
To say the least.
That was accumulated. It was like a hoarder. So I'm
Your
awarding
Honor,
you.
I have a
you give
video
it to your
of the
boyfriend.
room.
$250 to go and buy her a new necklace. Thank you very much. This case is over.
Thank you, Your Honor.
This court is adjourned.
I agree with the judge's decision 100%. I think it was very fair.
I think it wasn't fair.
She has so much more potential than what she's doing right now.
I was just trying to get my belongings, and he literally just never wanted me to do it.
She's a great kid, and in all reality, she's just making some wrong decisions right now.
I made any really bad decisions. It's all been influenced by my father. You know, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
I hope she grows up, and I love her.
I know I need to grow up, but he evicted me, gave me 2 days, and I didn't want to make my dad mad.
I hope you weren't talking about me when you were thinking of your grandchildren keeping messy rooms. I try and be neat and nice and organized.
Well, I wasn't thinking about you today as a law school graduate, but I do remember when you were in college and you were staying with us rather than in the dorm, keeping your door closed because it looked like somebody hit your room with a Mixmaster.
Maybe just a few too many open suitcases, I guess.
Yeah, open, unpacked suitcases. But got older and more respectful, and then you had your own apartment, and I remember visiting your apartment, and I said, who is it that lives here? I couldn't figure out who lived here. It's not the same person who lived with me.
It's a maturity thing, and I think I was shocked to see that she was only 19 years old, in line with what you said to her, that she looks older beyond her years, and some difficulty can do that to you, but you have to take accountability and do what you can to make your life organized and set yourself up for success.
That, all that is true. I'm not sure that she has all the tools to do that, and I don't know if she has anybody there to guide her. It's too bad because she seems like an intelligent young woman, and her grandmother certainly portrayed a picture of a child who was accomplished when she was younger, and then something happened.
I hope she turns it around.
Hope she turns it around.